Welcome back, where we explore the deepest mysteries of gaming's most compelling worlds. If you're enjoying these deep dives into lore, hitting that subscribe button really does help more than you might think. It lets us keep bringing you these long-form explorations of the stories we all love. Tonight, we venture into the depths of Bloodborne to unravel one of its most enigmatic and tragic figures, Rom, the vacuous spider. Over the next few hours, we'll explore how a brilliant scholar became a cosmic guardian, why she maintains the barrier between human perception and cosmic truth, and what her existence reveals about the terrible price of enlightenment in Yharnam's nightmare-soaked streets. This is a story about sacrifice and ignorance, about the mercy of blindness and the curse of sight, about a being who gave up everything she was to protect, a world that would never know her name. So settle in, get comfortable, and let us begin this journey into the moonlit waters, where Rom keeps her eternal vigil. Chapter 1. The Scholar Before the Spider. Before she became the vacuous spider, before she took her place in the moonlit depths of Bergenworth's lake, Rom was something far different. She was a scholar, a thinker, a seeker of truth in an age when humanity first began to grasp that the universe held secrets far beyond their comprehension. To understand what Rom became, we must first understand who she was and the world that shaped her transformation. Bergenworth College stands as the birthplace of everything that would eventually consume Yharnam. Long before the healing church rose to power, before blood ministration became the city's salvation and curse, Bergenworth was simply an institution of learning. Its scholars delved into ancient mysteries with the pure curiosity of those who believed knowledge itself was the highest virtue. They studied the ruins beneath the earth, the Pythagorean labyrinths that had been carved by civilizations long forgotten. And in those depths, they found something that would change everything. Master Willem led Bergenworth during this golden age of discovery. His philosophy centered on a single profound insight, that humanity's greatest limitation was not physical, but perceptual. We could not understand the cosmos because we lacked the sensory apparatus to perceive it properly. We are thinking on the basest of planes, you would say, his words becoming doctrine for his students. What we need are more eyes. This wasn't metaphor. Willem believed literally in the need for new forms of perception, new ways of sensing and comprehending reality, and among his most dedicated students was we don't know her original name or much about her life before Bergenworth, but we know she was there during those crucial early days. She was present when they first uncovered the old blood in the Pythagorean depths. She witnessed the wonder and horror as that discovery split the college's leadership forever. The schism between Willem and Lawrence represents one of history's great philosophical divergences. Lawrence, who would go on to found the healing church, saw in the old blood an immediate practical application. Here was a substance that could heal any wound, cure any disease, transform the weak into the strong. Why wait for some theoretical evolution of human perception when they had in their hands the power to elevate humanity now? Willem saw the danger in this approach. The blood came from beings whose consciousness operated on levels humans couldn't comprehend. To introduce it into human systems without proper understanding was to invite catastrophe. Better to pursue insight, to evolve human perception, gradually, until they could meet these cosmic entities as equals, rather than as children playing with forces beyond their understanding. Rome found herself caught between these philosophies. She had devoted her life to the pursuit of knowledge, to understanding the cosmos through study and observation. Yet she also understood the allure of what Lawrence proposed. The old blood offered tangible results, immediate transformation, the promise of transcendence without the slow, painful work of evolutionary development. The break between Willem and Lawrence came not just over philosophical differences, but over what they found in their continued exploration of the Pythagorean labyrinths. As they delved deeper into those ancient tombs, they encountered not just the remnants of a dead civilization, but evidence of something still alive, still watching, still present in ways that defied normal human understanding. These were the Great Ones, beings of such vast consciousness and power that human minds struggled even to perceive them properly, let alone comprehend their nature or purpose. The Pothemarians had known them, had communed with them, had perhaps even served them in ways the Bergenworth scholars were only beginning to understand. And the old blood, that miraculous substance they had found, was not simply a natural phenomenon. It was a gift, or perhaps an infection, from these cosmic entities. Willem's response to this discovery was to intensify his research into methods of expanding human perception. He believed that if humanity could develop the capability to perceive and understand the Great Ones properly, they might be able to interact with them safely. This research led him to experiments with eyes, both literal and metaphorical, ways of granting humans the sensory capacity to perceive cosmic truth. Rome participated in this research. She understood Willem's caution, his desire to approach cosmic knowledge carefully and methodically, but she also saw how slowly this process moved, how many years or even generations it might take to develop truly reliable methods of cosmic perception. Meanwhile, Lawrence's church was growing in power and influence, offering immediate relief from suffering through blood ministration. The tension within Bergenworth grew as Lawrence prepared to leave and establish his church. Some scholars would follow him, believing his path offered more hope for humanity's elevation. Others would remain with Willem, committed to the slower but potentially safer path of evolved perception. Rome found herself facing a choice that would determine not just her own future, but the fate of all Yharnam. What happened next remains one of Bloodborne's deepest mysteries, but we can piece together the outlines from the evidence scattered throughout the game. At some point after Lawrence's departure, Willem's research into cosmic perception reached a critical juncture. He had made contact with something, some cosmic entity or force, that offered a terrible bargain. Humans could be granted the eyes they needed, the cosmic perception Willem had spent his life pursuing, but the cost would be their humanity itself. Chapter 2. The Transformation and its Price. The transformation of a human into kin represents one of the most fundamental mysteries in Bloodborne's cosmic horror. It's not simply a physical change, though the bodily alterations are certainly profound and disturbing. Rather, becoming kin means having your entire consciousness restructured to operate on cosmic rather than human principles. You gain the perception you sought, the ability to see and understand truths beyond mortal comprehension. But in the process, you lose something essential, something that made you human in the first place. Rom's transformation into the vacuous spider was not an accident or a curse imposed upon her. The evidence suggests it was a deliberate choice, a sacrifice made with full knowledge of what would be lost. But to understand why anyone would make such a choice, we need to understand what Bergenworth discovered in its final days as a purely human institution. The Great Ones, those cosmic entities that dwelled beyond normal human perception, were not simply alien beings with incomprehensible motives. They were driven by needs and desires that, once understood, revealed a profound and terrible truth about the nature of cosmic consciousness. The Great Ones wanted children. They yearned for offspring with a desperation that colored their every interaction with mortal beings. Yet despite their immense power, despite their ability to manipulate reality itself, the Great Ones could not reproduce successfully through normal means. They lost their children. Every child, every attempt at creating new cosmic life, ended in failure and loss. This created in them a yearning so vast, it literally reshaped reality around them. They sought surrogates, beings who could serve as substitute children, and in humanity they saw potential candidates. Bergenworth scholars, peering into cosmic truth with their expanded perception, witnessed this yearning. They understood that the Great Ones were not simply studying humanity out of idle curiosity. These cosmic entities were actively attempting to elevate humans, to transform them into suitable surrogates who could fill the void left by their lost children. The old blood itself was part of this process, a means of introducing cosmic essence into human forms. But there was a profound problem with this approach. The very qualities that made humans interesting as potential surrogates, their creativity, their growth, their dynamic consciousness, were incompatible with the static nature of cosmic existence. When humans were elevated to cosmic perception, when they were granted the eyes they needed to see truth, they lost the very dynamism that had made them appealing in the first place. This is what it means to become keen. You achieve cosmic awareness, but you become fixed, static, unable to grow or change in the ways that characterize human existence. You become a perfect observer of reality, but lose the ability to participate in it. Meaningfully, you see everything, but can do nothing with that sight except watch and wait. Willem understood this trap. His famous words, "We are born of the blood, made men by the blood, undone by the blood," speak to the cyclical nature of the problem. The blood offers elevation, but delivers stagnation. It promises transcendence, but delivers a different kind of limitation. And yet, faced with the alternative of remaining forever blind to cosmic truth, some of his students chose transformation anyway. Roman was among them. But her transformation was different from the others who became kin. Where most kin are scattered throughout Yharnam and its nightmare realms, relatively powerless creatures despite their cosmic awareness, Rom became something far more significant. She became the vacuous spider, a being of immense cosmic importance, who would take on a role unlike any other in Yharnam's tragic history. The process of her transformation must have been excruciating, not physically but mentally and spiritually. Imagine having your consciousness expanded suddenly to perceive reality on multiple planes simultaneously. Everything you thought you knew about existence revealed as a tiny fragment of a much larger and more terrible truth. The comfortable illusions that allow humans to live without existential terror stripped away permanently. Your body changes to match your new awareness. Your physical form can no longer contain or express what you have become. You need a new shape, a new structure that can house cosmic consciousness while still existing in physical reality. For Rom, this meant becoming spider-like, a being that exists partially in normal space and partially in realms beyond human perception. The spider form itself carries symbolic weight. Spiders are creatures that exist between spaces, that create webs connecting different points, that see through multiple eyes simultaneously. Rum's transformation gave her not just cosmic perception, but a specific role to play. She would become the web, the connection, the barrier between human ignorance and cosmic truth. But why vacuous? The term suggests emptiness, absence of thought or awareness. Yet this seems contradictory for a being granted cosmic perception. The answer lies in what Rom sacrificed to become what she is. Vacancy is not a lack of awareness, but a deliberate emptying of self. Rom gave up her individual identity, her personal thoughts and desires, everything that made her specifically Rom the scholar. What remains is pure function, a consciousness devoted entirely to her cosmic role, without the distraction of personal wants or fears. This sacrifice was necessary for what she was meant to do. Rum was not transformed to be a surrogate child for the Great Ones. She was transformed to be a guardian, a barrier, a cosmic force, maintaining separation between humanity and the full horror of cosmic truth. And to fulfill this role, she needed to become something that would not waver, would not doubt, would not make decisions based on personal preference or fear. The transformation left Rom in a state that's neither fully human nor fully cosmic. She exists in a liminal space, a threshold between worlds. She can perceive both the mundane reality of Yharnam and the cosmic truth that lurks behind it. And through her own existence, through her presence in the moonlit lake, she maintains the veil that prevents ordinary humans from perceiving what she perceives. Willem watched this transformation with feelings we can only imagine. Had he meant for this to happen? Was Rom's sacrifice part of a plan he had devised? Or did she make this choice independently? The game gives us no clear answer, but we know that after Rom's transformation, Willem himself changed. He began to change physically, to take on aspects of kin himself, though he never completed the transformation fully. He remained forever at Bergenworth, sitting at the lake's edge, watching the water where Rom now dwelt. The other scholars who witnessed Rom's transformation either fled or underwent their own changes. Some became the Garden of Eyes, those pitiful king creatures that now wander near the lake, their heads bloated with eyes they cannot close, forced to see truths they cannot escape. Others scattered to different parts of Yharnam, carrying knowledge of what had transpired but powerless to undo it. Bergenworth itself became a tomb, a monument to the pursuit of knowledge that went too far. The college that had once been the pinnacle of human learning became a haunted ruin, home only to Willem in his transformed state, and the kin who could not leave. And beneath the lake, in depths both literal and metaphorical, Rom took up her eternal vigil. Chapter 3, The Moonside Lake, and Rom's Domain. Moonside Lake is not simply a body of water. It is a threshold, a boundary between mundane reality and something far stranger. The lake serves as Rom's domain, the physical space where she maintains her barrier, but it also represents something deeper about the nature of cosmic boundaries and the spaces between worlds. To reach Rom, a hunter must first travel through Bergenworth itself, that ruined college where cosmic knowledge was first pursued. The path takes you past the lingering evidence of scholarly ambition, the lecture halls and research chambers now empty except for the kin who shamble through them. You encounter the Garden of Eyes, those tragic beings who gained sight but lost everything else. You sense the weight of history, the tragedy that unfolded here. But the lake itself exists in a different state than the rest of Bergenworth. When you approach its shore and look out across the water, you can see a massive, pale shape moving beneath the surface. This is Rome, and yet the water itself seems different from normal water. It has a quality of luminescence, a strange inner light that has nothing to do with reflected moonlight. This is literally moonside water, fluid that exists partially in normal reality and partially in cosmic space. The method by which a hunter crosses this lake reveals its true nature. You don't swim, you don't take a boat. Instead, at Bergenworth's bell, you are transported in an instant from the shore to the lake's depths. This isn't simply game mechanics. It's a representation of how threshold spaces work in Bloodborne. You cannot cross the barrier between worlds through normal means. You need a cosmic key, a way of signaling your readiness to perceive what lies beyond normal sight. When you arrive in Rom's domain, you find yourself in a vast space that seems both underwater and not. The physics feel wrong. Movement is slower, as if you're wading through something denser than air, but not quite as resistant as water. The light comes from nowhere and everywhere. That same pale luminescence that characterizes moonlit spaces throughout Bloodborne, and dominating this space is Rom herself. Rom the vacuous spider is massive, easily 3 times the height of a human hunter. Her body combines elements of spider and slug, soft and pale, and disturbingly organic. But what strikes you most are her eyes, or rather her head. Where you might expect to find a spider's clustered eyes, Rom has something different. Her head is bulbous, swollen, with what might be brain matter, or might be something else entirely. The head seems almost too large for her body, and it radiates a dim inner light. She moves slowly, ponderously, as if every motion requires immense effort, and she is surrounded constantly by smaller spiders, her children or perhaps extensions of herself. These attendants seem more aggressive than Rom, more willing to defend their mistress, but Rom herself shows little interest in combat when you first arrive. She seems almost oblivious to your presence, focused entirely on something else, some task or function that occupies her complete attention. This apparent vacancy is what gives her the title Vacuous. Yet it's not true emptiness. If you watch Rom carefully before engaging in combat, you can see she's actually doing something. Her head glows with that internal light in rhythmic pulses. The space around her shimmers slightly, as if reality itself is being actively maintained by her presence. She's not simply existing in this space, she's doing work here, cosmic work that requires her complete concentration. The structure of the lake itself reflects its purpose as a barrier. It exists at a specific point in Yharnam's geography, directly beneath Bergenworth, but it also connects to other spaces that have no clear physical relationship to that location. The nightmare realms, the cosmic planes, where the Great Ones dwell, the blood moon that waits hidden from human perception, all of these exist in relationship to Moonside Lake, not through physical distance, but through conceptual proximity. Rom maintains her vigil as crucial junction. Her presence here is not arbitrary. This is where the barrier between worlds must be maintained, because this is where the conceptual boundaries are thinnest. Bergenworth's pursuit of cosmic knowledge created a weakness in reality's fabric, a place where human awareness came dangerously close to breaking through to cosmic truth. Rom exists to seal that weakness, to ensure that breakthrough doesn't occur. The lake's pale water might be understood as concentrated cosmic fluid, the old blood in a raw and undiluted state. It's the medium through which Rom's cosmic awareness can spread, the substance she uses to maintain her barrier. By dwelling in this water, by suffusing it with her consciousness, she creates a field of cosmic dampening that prevents normal humans from perceiving what exists beyond their sight. Yet the lake is also beautiful in its own terrible way. The moonlight that filters through the water creates an otherworldly atmosphere, peaceful and dreamlike, despite the horror of what's happening here. This aesthetic mirrors Rom's own nature. She is protecting humanity through her sacrifice, maintaining their comfortable ignorance, so they can continue living without the burden of cosmic truth. There's something almost gentle about her presence. Despite her monstrous form, the smaller spiders that surround Rom serve multiple functions. They might be her offspring in some sense, though not biological children. More likely they are extensions of her will, pieces of her consciousness given limited autonomy to defend her while she maintains the barrier. They attack hunters aggressively because they understand, in their limited way, that anyone who reaches Rom represents a threat to her crucial work. When you observe Rom's behavior more closely, you notice she occasionally creates those smaller spiders from nothing, as if spawning them from her own essence. This is not reproduction in any normal sense, but a kind of mitosis, splitting off fragments of her consciousness to serve as defenders. Each spider carries a piece of Rom's awareness, though nothing like her full cosmic perception. The space itself shifts when you engage with Rom. As the fight progresses, as you damage her physical form and disrupt her concentration, the barrier begins to weaken. The lake's quality changes. The light becomes strained. You can sense something vast pressing against the boundary Rom maintains, eager to break through, to be seen and acknowledged by human awareness. This is the true horror of fighting Rom. You are not simply killing a monster. You are deliberately dismantling a cosmic defense system that was put in place for humanity's protection. Every blow you strike against Rom's physical form weakens her ability to maintain the barrier. You are choosing to destroy the veil of comfortable ignorance, to force cosmic truth upon Yharnam, whether its people want it or not. Rim seems to understand this. Even in her vacuous state, even with her consciousness devoted entirely to her cosmic function, some part of her recognizes what your presence means. But she doesn't flee. She doesn't try to reason with you or explain what you're doing. She simply continues her work for as long as she's able, maintaining the barrier until her physical form finally fails and her consciousness disperses. The lake will remain after Rom's death, but it will be fundamentally changed. The water will lose its protective quality, the luminescence will fade, and the threshold it represented will be irrevocably breached. What was once a barrier becomes an open gateway, and all of Yharnam will pay the price for that transformation. Chapter 4. The Veil of Ignorance and What It Conceals. To understand Rom's true significance, we must examine what she actually hides from human perception. The barrier she maintains is not simply a physical wall, but a perceptual filter that operates on the level of consciousness itself. Ordinary humans in Yharnam cannot see what exists beyond this filter, not because they physically lack the organs to perceive it, but because their minds are not structured to process cosmic truth without Rom's protective intervention. The most immediate and visible thing Rom conceals is the presence of amygdala, those towering great ones that literally hang from buildings throughout Yharnam. Before Rom's death, hunters with low insight walk past these massive cosmic beings without any awareness of their presence. The amygdalas are physically there, occupying space, but they exist at a frequency of reality that normal human perceptions simply cannot register. This isn't invisibility in any conventional sense. If it were, the amygdalas would still interact with their environment in visible ways. Objects they touched would move without apparent cause. Their massive weight would affect the buildings they cling to, but none of this happens for those who cannot perceive them. The amygdalas exist in a state of partial reality, manifesting fully only for those with the eyes to see them. Rom's barrier maintains this state of partial manifestation. Through her cosmic awareness and her position at the threshold of worlds, she regulates how fully the Great Ones can intrude into human reality. They exist, they observe, they influence events in subtle ways, but they cannot fully manifest or interact directly with the physical world, while Rom maintains her vigil. The blood moon represents another crucial element of what Rom conceals. Throughout the early portions of a hunter's night in Yharnam, the moon appears pale and normal, if perhaps slightly larger and more luminous than a typical moon. But this appearance is deceptive, a cosmic illusion maintained by Rom's barrier. The true moon, the blood moon, red and vast and filled with terrible significance, waits just beyond perception. When Rom dies and the barrier falls, the blood moon becomes visible to all. This transformation is not the moon itself changing, but human perception finally registering what was always there. The blood moon represents the full cosmic truth that Rom has been hiding, the revelation that even the celestial bodies above Yharnam are not what they appear to be. The sky itself is a lie, or at least an incomplete truth, and Rom's death strips away that comfortable deception. The appearance of the blood moon triggers cascading changes throughout Yharnam. Amygdalas that were merely present become actively aggressive. Certain locations transform, revealing nightmare aspects that were previously hidden. NPCs who were barely holding on to sanity finally break under the weight of cosmic revelation. The very fabric of reality in Yharnam becomes unstable as the barrier that held it in comfortable ignorance fails. But there's more to what Rom conceals than just the physical presence of Great Ones. She also maintains barriers around certain kinds of knowledge and understanding. Humans in Yharnam can use the old blood, can even recognize its unusual properties, but they cannot fully comprehend its cosmic origin or the implications of its use while Rom's barrier stands. They remain willfully or involuntarily ignorant of the true nature of what they are introducing into their bodies. This extends to the healing church's practices. The church ministers use blood freely, even developing increasingly potent variants for their highest members. But they do so without fully grasping that they are serving the reproductive agenda of cosmic entities beyond their comprehension. Rom's barrier allows this dangerous ignorance to persist, protecting the church's practitioners from understanding what they're really doing, even as they slowly transform into beasts. The barrier also conceals the full extent of the connection between Yharnam and the nightmare realms. The hunter's dream, the nightmare frontier, the nightmare of Mensis. All of these spaces exist in relationship to Yharnam, but remain largely separate from it. While Rom maintains her vigil, after her death, the boundary between these realms become more porous, easier to cross, more dangerous for everyone involved. We can understand Rom's barrier as operating on multiple levels simultaneously. On the most basic level, it's a perceptual filter that prevents humans from seeing the Great Ones who dwell among them. On a deeper level, it's a conceptual shield that prevents humans from understanding the cosmic implications of their own actions. And on the deepest level, it's a reality stabilizer that keeps Yharnam's mundane existence separate from the nightmare realms that surround it. This multi-layered barrier explains why Rom's death has such profound consequences. It's not just that humans can suddenly see things they couldn't see before, it's that the entire structure of reality in Yharnam shifts from one state to another. What was stable becomes fluid. What was hidden becomes manifest. What was possible becomes actual. The tragedy is that this revelation serves no one's interests, except perhaps those of the Great Ones themselves. The humans of Yharnam don't benefit from seeing the amygdalas that surround them, from witnessing the blood moon, from understanding the cosmic truth of their situation. This knowledge doesn't empower them or protect them. If anything, it makes them more vulnerable, more likely to succumb to madness or transformation. Even the hunter who kills Rom gains nothing positive from the act. Yes, the hunter progresses in their quest, moves closer to understanding the true nature of Yharnam's curse, but this understanding comes at the cost of every innocent person in the city who must now perceive cosmic horror they were never meant to witness. The hunter becomes, in effect, a destroyer of mercy, stripping away the protective ignorance that allowed Yharnam's citizens to continue living something approximating normal lives. Rome understood this. Her sacrifice wasn't just in the initial transformation from scholar to spider. It was in the ongoing work of maintaining the barrier, knowing that eventually someone would come to destroy her and undo everything she was protecting. She couldn't stop this from happening. Her role was simply to delay it, to give Yharnam as much time as possible, under the protection of ignorance before the inevitable revelation. This makes Rome perhaps the most tragic figure in all of Bloodborne. She gave up her humanity, her identity, her very self, to protect a world that would never thank her and would eventually destroy her. She maintained a vigil, knowing it was temporary, holding back cosmic truth for as long as she could manage, but understanding that her protection would ultimately fail when a hunter strong and determined enough arrived to break through her defenses. The veil she maintained was an act of mercy, however terrible the form that mercy took. By keeping humanity ignorant, she gave them something precious, the ability to live without the crushing weight of cosmic awareness, to love and fear and strive and dream without knowing that none of it truly matters on the scale of cosmic time, to believe their actions have meaning in a universe that has stripped meaning from existence. When that veil falls, when Rom's barrier finally breaks and the blood moon rises over Yharnam, what's revealed is not liberation or enlightenment, but merely horror. The citizens don't become wise or powerful through their new perception. They simply become aware of their own insignificance, their helplessness before forces they cannot hope to resist or understand. This is what Rom prevented for as long as she could. Chapter 5. The Great One's Agenda and Rome's Interference. The Great One's relationship with Rome is complex and reveals profound truths about cosmic consciousness and the nature of power across different planes of existence. Rome was transformed by the Great Ones, granted cosmic awareness and a specific function within their broader agenda, yet her role as barrier keeper actually works against certain aspects of what the Great Ones desire. This paradox lies at the heart of understanding both Rome's significance and the tragic futility of cosmic purpose. The Great Ones seek surrogate children to fill the void left by their inability to reproduce successfully. This drive shapes their every interaction with humanity. They offer power, knowledge, transformation, all in the hope that somehow, through some combination of cosmic essence and mortal potential, they might create beings that could serve as replacement children. The old blood itself is a vector for this process, a means of introducing cosmic qualities into human flesh. But there's a fundamental problem with this approach. The qualities that make humans interesting as potential surrogates are precisely the qualities that cosmic awareness destroys. Humans grow, change, develop, create, imagine. They have dynamic consciousness that evolves through experience. This vitality, this constant becoming, is what attracts the Great One's attention. Yet when humans are elevated to cosmic perception, they become static, fixed in a state of eternal observation, without the capacity for the kind of growth that characterizes living beings. Rom represents the ultimate expression of this paradox. She was granted cosmic awareness, specifically, to serve a function that prevents other humans from achieving similar awareness. By maintaining the barrier between mundane and cosmic reality, she ensures that the vast majority of Yharnam's population remains ignorant of the Great One's presence and purpose. This seems counterproductive if the Great One's goal is to elevate humans into potential surrogates. The explanation lies in understanding that the Great Ones themselves are not unified in purpose or method. Different Great Ones pursue different strategies for addressing their reproductive tragedy. Some, like the amygdalas, take a more passive approach, observing humanity and waiting for individuals who naturally develop the capacity to perceive cosmic truth. Others, like Moon Presence, take a more active role in attempting to cultivate suitable candidates through controlled environments like the hunter's dream. Ramen serves the interests of those Great Ones who understand that premature exposure to cosmic truth destroys more potential surrogates than it creates. By keeping the majority of humans ignorant, Rom actually preserves them as possible candidates for eventual elevation. She prevents the mass insanity and transformation that would result if all of Yharnam suddenly perceived the cosmic horror surrounding them. Think of it as a filtering system. Most humans, if suddenly exposed to the full reality of the Great One's presence, would break immediately. Their minds would shatter under the weight of cosmic revelation, turning them into useless madmen or accelerating their transformation into beasts. By maintaining ignorance, Rom ensures that only those humans who gradually develop insight, who slowly build the mental framework necessary to process cosmic truth, ever perceive what lies beyond the veil. These rare individuals, hunters and scholars who accumulate insight through experience and discovery, represent the Great One's best hope for successful surrogate creation. They approach cosmic awareness gradually, building tolerance for impossible truths, developing the mental flexibility necessary to process information that would destroy less prepared minds. Rom's barrier doesn't prevent these individuals from achieving cosmic perception. Instead, it ensures that the journey towards such perception is slow enough to potentially preserve sanity. This is why the insight mechanic in Bloodborne is so significant. Insight represents exactly the kind of gradual cosmic awareness that might, theoretically, lead to successful surrogate creation. A hunter who slowly accumulates insight, who witnesses cosmic truths one at a time rather than all at once, develops a framework for understanding that might survive the transition to full cosmic consciousness. Rom's barrier makes this graduated approach possible by preventing sudden, overwhelming revelation. Yet Rom's role also represents a tragic admission by the Great Ones. By creating a barrier keeper, they acknowledge that their own presence is too overwhelming for most humans to perceive safely. They recognize that their very existence, when fully revealed, destroys the consciousness they seek to cultivate. This is a kind of cosmic loneliness beyond measure, to be so fundamentally incompatible with other forms of consciousness that your mere presence drives them mad. Rom's transformation serves another purpose in the Great One's agenda. She demonstrates the price of cosmic awareness, the cost of achieving the perception that the Great Ones themselves possess naturally. Every scholar at Bergenworth who saw what Rom became understood immediately what awaited anyone who pursued cosmic truth to its conclusion. This knowledge should have served as a warning, a deterrent against further pursuit of forbidden insight. Instead, it became a lure. As some of Bergenworth, scholars looked at Rom's transformation and saw not horror, but possibility. They reasoned that if transformation was the price of cosmic truth, it might be a price worth paying. This is how the choir was eventually formed, a faction within the healing church specifically dedicated to achieving the kind of cosmic communion that had transformed Rom. They studied her, tried to understand her methods, sought to replicate her success, while somehow avoiding her loss of humanity. The choir's failure was inevitable. They could grant themselves eyes, could increase their cosmic perception through study of Great One physiology and careful application of old blood, but they couldn't maintain their humanity through this process. Every step toward cosmic awareness was also a step away from the dynamic consciousness that made humans interesting to the Great Ones in the first place. The choir produced numerous kin, but no successful surrogates. Rom's existence thus serves as both protection and temptation. She protects ordinary humans from cosmic revelation, while simultaneously demonstrating to ambitious scholars that cosmic transformation is possible. Her presence in the lake is a constant reminder of both what can be achieved and what must be sacrificed to achieve it. She is a warning that few heed and a promise that no one can truly claim. The Great Ones must have understood this dual nature when they transformed Rome. They knew her presence would attract certain individuals, even while it protected others. Perhaps this was intentional, a way of sorting humans into categories. Those who would be destroyed by cosmic revelation, those who would be tempted by it, and those rare few who might navigate the path successfully. From this perspective, every hunter who eventually seeks out Rom and destroys her is doing exactly what the Great Ones intended. The hunter has demonstrated the capacity to navigate Yharnam's horrors, to accumulate insight gradually, to face cosmic truth without immediate mental collapse. By seeking Rom out and breaking her barrier, the hunter proves themselves as a potential candidate for true cosmic elevation. Yet this test is also a trap. The hunter who kills Rom and witnesses the blood moon has revealed their capacity for cosmic perception, but has also destroyed the protection that allowed them to develop that capacity. Gradually, after Rom's death, cosmic truth floods in without restraint. The hunter must either ascend to something beyond human or be destroyed by the revelation they've unleashed. There's no middle ground, no comfortable state between ignorance and full cosmic awareness. This is the terrible gift Rom's death represents. The hunter wanted to progress, to understand, to uncover truth. Rom's death grants this desire, but removes all safety barriers in the process. The hunter will understand, but that understanding may well destroy them. They will perceive cosmic truth, but that perception may strip away everything that made them human. Rom knew this would happen. In her vacuous state, with her consciousness devoted entirely to maintaining the barrier, she still retained enough awareness to understand what her death would mean. Every hunter who approached her represented not just a threat to her existence, but a soul she had failed to protect. She had maintained the veil for as long as possible, but ultimately she couldn't prevent determined individuals from breaking through. The Great Ones watch all of this with their vast, inhuman patience. They don't mourn Ram when she falls. They can't. Not in any way humans would understand as mourning, but they do observe the consequences with interest. Will this hunter, having broken through the barrier, prove capable of ascending further? Will they become the surrogate child the Great Ones have sought for so long? Or will they simply be another failure, another consciousness destroyed by premature exposure to cosmic truth? This is why Rom's death is such a pivotal moment in Bloodborne's narrative. It represents the point where protection ends and testing truly begins. Everything before Rom's death was preparation, a slow building of capability and insight within the safety of limited perception. Everything after is a brutal evaluation of whether that preparation was sufficient. The hunter has proven they can navigate ignorance successfully. Now they must prove they can navigate truth. The tragedy is that most humans fail this test. The citizens of Yharnam, forced to witness the blood moon and perceive the amygdalas without any preparation, break almost immediately. They go mad, transform, succumb to the beast scourge in unprecedented numbers. The hunter themselves, despite all their preparation, may still fail to achieve true ascension. Rom's death doesn't guarantee success. It merely removes the protection that made failure survivable. In this sense, Rom's role in the Great One's agenda is one of mercy administration. She determines how long each generation of humans has to develop potential candidates before cosmic truth overwhelms them. She cannot stop the revelation permanently, but she can delay it, giving humanity more time to produce individuals who might survive the transition to cosmic awareness. That she performs this role at the cost of her own humanity, her own identity, her own consciousness, makes her perhaps the most selfless being in Bloodborne's universe. The Great Ones cannot truly appreciate what she has sacrificed, because they never possessed what she gave up. Humans cannot thank her, because her success means they remain ignorant of the danger she protects them from. She exists in a state of eternal service, acknowledged by none, understood by few, valued only in her failure. When Rom dies, the Great Ones don't see tragedy, they see opportunity. The barrier has fallen. The test can now proceed. A new generation of candidates will be forced to confront cosmic truth. Most will fail, but perhaps, finally, one will succeed. And if none do, well, the cycle will continue. Eventually, another barrier keeper will be needed. Another Rom will be created, and the whole process will begin again. This is the crushing indifference of cosmic consciousness. Rom's sacrifice, her endless vigil, her protection of an entire city, all of it matters only as a temporary phase in an eternal cycle. The Great Ones don't see her as an individual worthy of recognition, but as a function that occasionally needs to be performed. When she fails, they will replace her. When her replacement fails, they will create another. On and on, forever, the Great Ones pursuing their impossible dream of viable offspring. Rom likely understood this too. In her final moments of human consciousness, before the transformation completed and her sense of self dissolved into pure function, she must have grasped the full horror of what she was becoming, a tool for cosmic beings who could never truly appreciate her sacrifice, a barrier that would eventually be broken, a protection that was always meant to be temporary. And yet she chose this fate anyway, chose to become vacuous, chose to give up everything she was to buy humanity a few more years of ignorant peace. Chapter 6. The Architecture of Insight. To fully grasp Rom's significance, we need to understand how insight functions in Bloodborne's universe and why it represents such a crucial element in the relationship between human and cosmic consciousness. Insight is not simply knowledge or understanding in any conventional sense. It's a fundamental restructuring of perception that allows humans to register realities that exist outside normal sensory range. The game mechanizes insight as a currency, something you can spend for certain services or accumulate for specific benefits. But this mechanical representation reflects a deeper truth about the nature of cosmic awareness. Insight isn't something you simply have or don't have. It's a gradual spectrum, a sliding scale between complete ignorance and full cosmic perception. Rom's barrier works by limiting how far along this spectrum ordinary humans can progress. At zero insight, a hunter sees Yharnam as relatively normal, or at least as normal as a Gothic city beset by a plague of beasts can appear. The buildings are just buildings. The sky is just sky. The people are just people, albeit some of them dangerously aggressive or obviously ill. This is the state Rom's barrier maintains for Yharnam's general population, a comfortable mundane perception that allows normal life to continue despite the cosmic horror literally surrounding them. As insight begins to accumulate, perception shifts. At certain thresholds, previously invisible elements become visible. The amygdalas clinging to buildings suddenly enter awareness. The environment itself takes on strange qualities, revealing details that were always present but imperceptible. The hunter begins to hear sounds that others cannot hear, see movements that others cannot see, understand implications that others would miss entirely. This gradual revelation is precisely what makes insight potentially safe, or at least safer than sudden cosmic revelation would be. The mind has time to adapt to each new layer of impossible truth before the next layer appears. A hunter who encounters their first amygdala, after gradually accumulating insight, has mental framework for processing this revelation. They've already accepted that reality is stranger than mundane perceptions suggest. The amygdala, while shocking, fits into an emerging pattern of cosmic strangeness. Compare this to what would happen if Rom's barrier suddenly failed while a human had zero insight. Every impossible truth would flood into awareness simultaneously. Amygdalas, lesser Great Ones, nightmare entities, the blood moon, all of it, at once, without any mental preparation. The mind would simply break under the weight of so much impossible revelation. This is exactly what happens to most of Yharnam's citizens after Rom's death. Rhume's barrier functions as a kind of insight limiter. It doesn't prevent insight from accumulating entirely, but it ensures that accumulation happens slowly through direct experience with cosmic elements, rather than through sudden overwhelming perception. A hunter gains insight by encountering bosses, discovering cosmic truths, consuming items that carry cosmic knowledge. Each of these experiences builds mental framework for processing the next revelation. The items that grant insight are particularly telling. Madman's knowledge, Great One's wisdom, various eyes and cosmic artifacts. Each of these carries a fragment of cosmic consciousness. Consuming them doesn't grant understanding directly, but rather expands the consumer's perceptual capacity slightly. You don't suddenly know more facts. Instead, you become capable of perceiving aspects of reality that were previously beyond your sensory range. This is why insight is described as making you more vulnerable to certain attacks. It's not that you become physically weaker, but that you can now perceive and be affected by cosmic forces that previously passed through you unnoticed. Frenzy builds faster at higher insight because you can now perceive the cosmic truth that induces frenzy. You were always being exposed to this truth, but your ignorance protected you from experiencing its full effect. The bell-ringing women, who appear in certain areas, only at higher insight levels, represent this principle perfectly. They were always there, ringing their bells, but you couldn't perceive them without sufficient insight. Once your perception expands to register their presence, you must deal with the consequences of that awareness. Ignorance was literally protective, and Rome maintained that ignorance for everyone, unable to gradually build resistance to cosmic truth. The transformation that happens to the hunter's perception of the doll in the hunter's dream provides another excellent example. At low insight, the doll is clearly just a doll, an object animated by some force, but fundamentally not alive. As insight increases, the doll takes on more lifelike qualities. She begins to move when you're not watching. Her responses become more animated and apparently conscious. Eventually, at sufficient insight, she's undeniably alive, a being with her own consciousness and agency. Was the doll always alive, and you simply couldn't perceive it? Or does your insight literally make her more alive by observing her with greater cosmic awareness? The game never clarifies, and that ambiguity is important. Cosmic perception doesn't just reveal reality, it potentially influences reality through the act of observation. This is a crucial aspect of how the Great Ones interact with mundane existence. Rom's barrier works by limiting this observational influence. By keeping humans ignorant of cosmic presence, she prevents their observation from affecting cosmic entities. The amygdalas can move through Yharnam without being fully manifest, because no one observes them with sufficient cosmic awareness to make them fully real in mundane space. Once Rom dies and humans begin to perceive them, the amygdalas become more fully present, more capable of direct interaction with physical reality. This suggests that the barrier Rom maintains is not just perceptual, but ontological. She doesn't simply hide the Great Ones from human sight. She prevents human observation from forcing the Great Ones into full manifestation in mundane reality. This is a much more complex and sophisticated form of protection than mere concealment. She's managing the boundary between different states of existence, ensuring that cosmic and mundane reality remain properly separated. The Choir understood this to some degree, which is why their research focused so heavily on eyes. They knew that perception was the key to cosmic interaction. If they could control how and what humans perceived, they could potentially manage humanity's relationship with the Great Ones more precisely. Their experiments with eyes, both literal and metaphorical, sought to replicate Rom's function in a more controllable form. But the Choir failed to grasp the full complexity of what Rom was doing. They thought it was simply about perception, about granting or restricting sight. They didn't understand the ontological dimension, the way observation influences manifestation, the feedback loop between cosmic awareness and cosmic reality. This is why their experiments produced kin, but never anything approaching Rom's level of cosmic function. The brain suckers that infest certain areas of Yharnam represent a dark reflection of Rom's role. These creatures reduce insight by literally consuming it, draining cosmic awareness from their victims. This should be protective, a forced return to ignorance that shields the victim from cosmic horror, but the process is violent, traumatic, leaving the victim damaged even as it supposedly protects them. It's as if someone tried to replicate Rom's barrier maintenance, but only understood the crudest mechanics of insight management. The insight system reveals another crucial truth about Bloodborne's cosmos. There is no safe level of cosmic awareness. Zero insight leaves you vulnerable to threats you cannot perceive or understand. Maximum insight exposes you to cosmic horror that can destroy your sanity. The only survivable approach is to navigate the spectrum carefully, accumulating insight gradually while building mental framework to process each new revelation. Rom's barrier enforces this gradual approach for ordinary humans. It ensures that cosmic awareness builds slowly through actual experience with cosmic elements, rather than flooding in all at once. This is mercy, though it's mercy most of Yharnam's citizens never realize they're receiving. They live their lives in comfortable ignorance, protected by a barrier they don't know exists, maintained by a guardian they'll never thank. The hunter, by seeking out Rom and destroying her, rejects this mercy. They demand full cosmic truth, regardless of the cost. This is presented as progress, as the natural path of the game, but it's worth considering what's actually being rejected. Rom offers protection at the cost of ignorance. The hunter chooses knowledge at the cost of safety. Neither option is clearly superior. Both involve profound sacrifices. After Rom's death, the insight system continues to function, but its nature changes. The barrier that limited perception is gone. Cosmic truth floods in. Without restraint, insight still accumulates gradually through specific experiences, but the baseline level of cosmic reality visible to the hunter increases dramatically. The blood moon hangs in the sky, visible even at moderate insight levels. Amygdalas roam freely, perceivable by anyone with even slight cosmic awareness. This represents the collapse of the protective gradation Rom's maintained. The spectrum between ignorance and full cosmic consciousness becomes compressed. There's less buffer between not knowing and knowing too much. The hunter must now navigate cosmic awareness without the training wheels Rom's barrier provided. This is why so many Yharnam citizens break after Rom's death. They were forced onto a path they weren't ready for, pushed toward cosmic awareness without the gradual preparation that might have made such awareness survivable. Rom's role as insight regulator might be her most important function, and also her most tragic one. She controlled the speed at which humanity approached cosmic consciousness, giving each generation time to produce individuals who might survive full revelation. But she could never stop that revelation permanently. She could only delay it, manage it, try to ensure that when the barrier finally broke, at least some humans would be prepared for what lay beyond. In the end, insight is both weapon and curse in Bloodborne. It grants power and understanding, while simultaneously exposing you to dangers that ignorance would have protected you from. Roma stood between humanity and that double-edged blade, taking the cuts herself to spare others. When she falls, everyone must now handle the blade directly, and most lack the skill or preparation to do so safely. This is the true tragedy of her death. Not that a guardian falls, but that everyone she was protecting suddenly finds themselves exposed to dangers they never knew existed. Understanding Rom's role requires examining her relationship to the Great One's central tragedy, their inability to bear successful children. This reproductive failure drives every major event in Bloodborne, and Rom's existence as barrier keeper connects directly to humanity's unwitting involvement in cosmic attempts to solve this problem. The Great Ones lost their children. The game states this simply, but the implications echo through every aspect of Yharnam's curse. These cosmic entities, beings of vast power and consciousness, cannot successfully reproduce. Every child they conceive is lost, whether through some fundamental incompatibility in cosmic biology or through forces we cannot comprehend. This creates in them a yearning so vast, it reshapes reality itself. Kos, the Great One, whose corpse lies washed up on the shore of the fishing hamlet, represents perhaps the most tragic example of this reproductive failure. She died gravid, her child still within her, and that child, the orphan of Kos, became something twisted and terrible in the nightmare that formed around its mother's death. The orphan was not lost in the way other Great One's children were lost, but its existence is so bound up with trauma and nightmare that it might as well be considered a failed birth. The relationship between Kos and Rom is not explicitly stated in Bloodborne's lore, but significant evidence suggests a connection. Both are associated with water, with depths, with barriers between worlds. Kos washed up from the ocean, that vast body of water that represents the deepest mysteries in Bloodborne's symbolism. Rom dwells in Moonside Lake, a body of water that serves as threshold between mundane and cosmic reality. Water in Bloodborne is consistently linked to cosmic consciousness, to the boundaries between different states of existence. The fishing hamlet's residents communed with Kos, developed a relationship with her that seemed almost symbiotic. They benefited from her presence, gained certain advantages from proximity to a Great One, but they also bore witness to her tragedy. They saw her corpse, knew about the child she carried, understood something of the cosmic grief that permeated her existence. This knowledge, this witnessing of cosmic tragedy, may have been what ultimately doomed them. When Bergenworth scholars, led by Master Willem, explored the fishing hamlet and encountered Kos's corpse, they discovered direct evidence of the Great One's reproductive failure. Here was proof that even cosmic beings could not successfully create new life. This discovery would have profoundly influenced Willem's philosophy and his approach to managing humanity's relationship with the Great Ones. If the Great Ones cannot reproduce successfully, then their interest in humanity makes terrible sense. They seek surrogates, replacement children, beings who might fill the void left by their lost offspring. Humanity, with our capacity for growth and change, must seem like promising candidates. But the transformation necessary to make humans compatible with cosmic existence destroys the very qualities that made them interesting as potential children in the first place. The transformation can be understood in this context. She became kin, achieved cosmic awareness, but lost her humanity in the process. She couldn't serve as a surrogate child because she became fixed, static, unable to grow or develop. Yet her transformation served another purpose in the Great One's broader agenda. By becoming the barrier keeper, she created the conditions under which other humans might potentially undergo the transformation more successfully. Think of it this way: Kos's failure to produce a viable child demonstrated the problem. Rom's transformation represented an attempt at a solution. By maintaining ignorance for most humans, while allowing insight to accumulate gradually for select individuals, Rom created a filtering system. She would identify which humans had the potential to survive cosmic elevation and protect them from premature revelation, while they developed necessary capabilities. This makes Rom's role even more tragic. She was transformed not just to protect humanity from cosmic truth, but to help identify which humans might serve as successful surrogates for the Great Ones. Her barrier wasn't purely merciful. It served the reproductive agenda of beings who saw humanity primarily as a source of potential children. Rom, who was once human herself, now existed as a tool for evaluating which other humans might be suitable for transformation. The old blood that flows through Yharnam serves this same purpose. It's a vector for introducing cosmic essence into human biology, an attempt to gradually transform humans into forms compatible with serving as Great One offspring. But the blood requires careful management. Too much, too quickly produces beasts or kin. Too little produces nothing. Rom's barrier helps manage this process by controlling the pace at which humans confront cosmic truth. The Healing Church, unknowingly, became administrators of this cosmic reproductive agenda. By distributing the old blood as medicine, they were actually exposing Yharnam's population to Great One essence in measured doses. Most recipients would transform into beasts, failures in cosmic terms. But some might develop a capacity for true cosmic awareness. Some might become suitable surrogates. Rome watched all of this from her position in Moonside Lake. She maintained the barrier that kept the process from spiraling out of control, while simultaneously allowing it to continue. She knew what the blood was doing to Yharnam's citizens, because she had undergone a more complete version of that same transformation herself. Yet she couldn't stop it. Her role wasn't to save humanity from the Great One's agenda, but to manage that agenda, to give it the best possible chance of success. This creates a profound moral complexity around Rome's existence. Is she protecting humanity, or enabling their exploitation? The answer is both. By maintaining ignorance, she spares most humans from immediate, cosmic horror. But that same ignorance allows the old blood's distribution to continue, slowly transforming the entire city into an experiment in cosmic reproduction. The Great Ones likely chose to create a barrier keeper rather than managing humanity directly precisely, because they understood that their direct involvement would be counterproductive. Their presence is too overwhelming. Humans exposed to Great Ones directly typically break immediately, becoming useless for surrogate purposes. Better to have intermediary, a being that was once human but now possesses cosmic awareness, managing the gradual exposure process. Rom's vacuous state becomes essential for this role. If she retained her full human consciousness, she might refuse to enable the Great One's use of humanity. She might try to warn people, to stop the blood distribution, to sabotage the process. By becoming vacuous, she loses the capacity for this kind of ethical resistance. She simply maintains the barrier, fulfills her function, enables the process to continue without moral objection. This is perhaps the darkest aspect of what happened to Rome. She wasn't just transformed into a cosmic guardian. She was specifically stripped of the capacity to object to what was being done to her former species. Her vacuous state is a feature, not a bug. It ensures her compliance with a process that any being with full human moral awareness would find abhorrent. The connection to Kos goes deeper than just thematic parallels. In the nightmare realm where the orphan of Kos dwells, we find evidence of a cosmic grudge, a mark placed upon those who violated Kos's corpse and her child. This suggests that Great Ones can form what we might call emotional attachments, can experience something analogous to grief or rage when their children are threatened or harmed. Ruum might represent an attempt to avoid such violations in the future. By creating a barrier that manages human interaction with cosmic reality, the Great Ones prevent humans from accidentally offending or harming them, the way Bergenworth scholars did at the fishing hamlet. Ruum doesn't just protect humans from cosmic truth, she also protects the Great Ones from human interference, creating a buffer that benefits both sides even if neither side consciously recognizes this benefit. The tragedy is that this system was always doomed to fail. The Great One's desire for surrogate children requires eventual direct contact between cosmic and human consciousness. Rome's barrier delays this contact, but cannot prevent it permanently. Sooner or later, a hunter would accumulate enough insight, enough power, enough determination to seek out cosmic truth directly. At that point, Rome's protective barrier becomes an obstacle rather than an aid. When the hunter confronts Rome, they're not just fighting a boss, they're destroying a carefully constructed system designed to manage humanity's gradual exposure to cosmic reality. They're tearing down the buffer that kept humans and Great Ones safely separated. In doing so, they force the confrontation that Rome existed to delay, bringing cosmic reproductive agenda and human ambition into direct collision. The orphan of Kos represents what happens when cosmic reproduction goes wrong. Rome represents an attempt to manage the process more carefully, to create conditions under which it might go right. Both are failures in their own ways. The orphan is twisted by trauma and nightmare, never truly born, never truly alive in any meaningful sense. Rome is vacuous, stripped of self, functioning purely as a tool for a process that will never succeed. Yet both endure. The orphan continues its existence in nightmare, bound to its mother's corpse and the trauma of its failed birth. Rom continues her vigil in the lake, maintaining a barrier that will eventually be destroyed. Both are caught in eternal cycles, unable to change or grow, unable to die or truly live, monuments to cosmic failure and the terrible price of attempting to force incompatible forms of existence into alignment. When we understand Rom's connection to the Great One's reproductive agenda, her role becomes even more heartbreaking. She's not just a guardian protecting ignorance. She's a former human being who was transformed into a tool for evaluating other humans as potential cosmic surrogates. She maintains a system that will ultimately harm the very species she once belonged to, and she lacks the consciousness necessary to object to or resist this role. Her death is therefore both liberation and tragedy. Liberation because she's finally freed from her eternal vigil, from maintaining a system she presumably didn't fully consent to when she was transformed. Tragedy because her death means the protective barrier fails, exposing all of Yharnam to cosmic truth they're unprepared to handle. The hunter who kills Rome destroys both a prison guard and a protector, and the consequences of that act ripple through the entire city. The Great Ones observe Rom's death without emotion we would recognize. To them, she was always just a temporary solution, a way of managing the problem until a better approach could be developed. Her failure doesn't grieve them, because they don't experience grief the way humans do. They simply note that the barrier has fallen and adjust their approach accordingly. Perhaps another barrier keeper will be needed eventually. Perhaps the current generation of humans has been sufficiently prepared for direct cosmic contact. The calculation continues without sentiment. This indifference might be the most horrifying aspect of the entire situation. Rom sacrificed her humanity, her identity, her very self, to serve a cosmic purpose. And when she fails, when she falls, the beings she served don't mourn. They don't remember her. They simply move on to the next phase of their eternal quest for viable offspring, leaving Rom's sacrifice unacknowledged and unremembered by anyone except perhaps Willem, who sits at the lake's edge and watches the water where she once maintained her vigil. Chapter 8. The Hunter's Journey to Breaking Point. The path that leads a hunter to confront Rome is not accidental. Every step of the journey through Yharnam builds toward this crucial encounter, gradually preparing the hunter for the moment when they will destroy the barrier between mundane and cosmic reality. Understanding this journey helps us appreciate both Rome's significance and the terrible inevitability of her defeat. The hunt begins with what seems like a straightforward mission: stop the beast plague. A hunter enters Yharnam to help with the scourge, to kill beasts, to perhaps discover a cure, or at least contain the spread of transformation. This initial framing presents the problem as biological or medical, something that can be solved through violence or discovery of the right treatment. But even early in the hunt, cracks appear in this mundane interpretation. The beasts are too numerous, too varied, too clearly the result of something more than simple disease. The healing church's involvement, their blood ministration practices, their mysterious upper hierarchy, all point towards something deeper than a plague. Yet the full truth remains hidden, protected by Rom's barrier. As the hunter progresses, they accumulate insight. This happens automatically, through certain encounters, but can also be pursued deliberately by consuming items that grant cosmic awareness. Each increment of insight shifts perception slightly, revealing details previously invisible. The hunter begins to suspect that Yharnam's problems run far deeper than they first appeared. The first major revelation typically comes with the encounter of Vicar Amelia. This high-ranking church official transforms into a massive beast during the fight, demonstrating that the scourge has infected even the church's leadership. More significantly, Amelia's prayer before her transformation reveals that the church understands something about the spiritual dimension of what's happening. They're not just dealing with a disease, they're dealing with corruption that has metaphysical components. After Amelia's defeat, the hunt changes character. The hunter gains access to areas that reveal more about Yharnam's cosmic connections. The Forbidden Woods, with their snake-headed inhabitants, and obvious supernatural elements make it clear that mundane explanations are insufficient. Something far stranger is at work here, something that transcends normal biology or medicine. The journey through the woods leads to Bergenworth, and this is where the hunt truly transforms from beast killing into cosmic investigation. Bergenworth represents the source, the place where humanity first encountered cosmic truth and made the decisions that would eventually doom Yharnam. The college is now abandoned, except for Master Willem and the kin, those transformed humans who achieved cosmic awareness at the cost of their humanity. Meeting Willem marks a crucial moment in the hunter's development. Here is a human being who has pursued cosmic truth further than almost anyone, and survived. He sits at the lake's edge, transformed but not destroyed, aware but not quite mad. His presence proves that cosmic awareness doesn't necessarily mean immediate destruction. It's possible to perceive impossible truths and remain somewhat intact, though the price is clearly very high. Willem's famous gesture, pointing toward the lake, guides the hunter toward Rom. He doesn't explain. He can't, really. His transformation has progressed to the point where he can barely communicate in human language. But the gesture is clear enough. If you want to progress, if you want to understand, you must go into the lake. You must confront what dwells there. The mechanical process of accessing the lake, using the Lunarium key and the bell to be transported, represents the hunter's choice to pursue cosmic truth, despite the cost. You could turn back at this point. You could decide that whatever lies beneath the water is better left undisturbed. But to progress in the hunt, to achieve the goals you've set for yourself, you must cross this threshold. When you arrive in Rom's domain and see her for the first time, the true nature of what you're about to do should become clear. This is not a beast. This is not a monster that threatens Yharnam through violence. Rom is still, almost peaceful, focused entirely on maintaining the barrier. She poses no immediate threat. She's simply performing her function, doing what she was transformed to do. Yet to progress, you must kill her. The game gives you no alternative. There's no way to negotiate with Rom, no way to achieve your goals while leaving her alive. The path forward requires her death, requires breaking the barrier she maintains. This is one of Bloodborne's most brilliant pieces of Lunar narrative design. The mechanics force you to do something that the lore suggests is deeply problematic. The fight itself reflects Rom's nature. She doesn't attack aggressively. Her movements are defensive, focused on avoiding harm rather than inflicting it. The smaller spiders that surround her do most of the actual fighting, trying to drive you away from their mistress. Rom teleports away when threatened, trying to maintain distance, trying to continue her work, even as you assault her. As the fight progresses and you damage Rom's physical form, the effects of the failing barrier become visible. The space begins to change. The light shifts. You can sense something massive pressing against the boundary Rom maintains, eager to break through. With each blow you land, that pressure increases. Rom is losing her ability to hold back cosmic truth. Eventually, her physical form fails. Rom's massive body collapses. Her work finally ended. The barrier she maintained for so long shudders and breaks. And immediately, the hunter witnesses the consequences of what they've done. The blood moon rises, red and vast and terrible. The amygdalas become visible, clinging to buildings throughout Yharnam. The cosmic truth Rom spent her existence hiding crashes down on the city without restraint. This is the breaking point the title of this chapter refers to. Not Rome's breaking, though that occurs. Not even Yharnam's breaking, though the city will never be the same. Rather, it's the breaking point in the hunter's journey, the moment when they transition from mundane problem solver to cosmic participant. Everything before Rome was preparation. Everything after requires navigating cosmic reality without the protective barriers that allowed gradual development. The hunter made choices that led to this moment. They pursued insight when they could have remained ignorant. They sought out Bergenworth when they could have turned away. They confronted Rom when they could have decided the cost was too high. Each choice built toward this breaking point, this moment when protection ends and cosmic truth floods in without restraint. What's remarkable is how inevitable this progression feels. The game's structure, its progression of areas and bosses, its distribution of insights and revelations, all create a path that leads inexorably to Rom. Very few players on their first playthrough even consider that killing Rom might be a mistake. The game presents it as progress, as achievement, as the natural next step in the hunt. Only later, when you understand what Rom was doing, what she sacrificed, what her death means for Yharnam, do you realize what you've done? You've destroyed the mercy of ignorance. You've forced cosmic revelation on an entire city of people, unprepared to handle it. You've traded the protection Rome provided for the raw truth she was hiding, and that truth is far more horrible than most of the beasts you've been fighting. This realization transforms how you see the rest of the game. Every subsequent area, every boss, every revelation, all exists in the post-Rom reality you created. The blood moon hangs in the sky because you put it there. The amygdalas roam freely because you made them visible. The cosmic horror that destroys what remains of Yharnam's sanity is horror you unleashed. And yet, was there another choice? Could you have stopped the hunt before reaching Rom? Could you have remained in comfortable ignorance, abandoned your quest for understanding, accepted that some truths are better left hidden? The game suggests these alternatives, but never makes them mechanically viable. To progress, to achieve anything, you must break Rom's barrier. This is Bloodborne's central tragedy, presented in its most concentrated form. The pursuit of truth, the drive to understand, the refusal to accept comfortable illusions, these admirable human qualities, lead directly to catastrophe. Rom offered protection at the price of ignorance. The hunter demanded truth at the price of safety. Neither choice was clearly right or wrong, but only one was possible given human nature. The breaking point is therefore not just a moment in the game, but a fundamental statement about human consciousness. We cannot remain in ignorance once we know something exists beyond our perception. We will always pursue truth, even when that truth destroys us. We will always break barriers, even when those barriers exist for our protection. This drive, this refusal to accept limitations on understanding, is both humanity's greatest strength and most terrible weakness. Rom understood this. In her final moments of human consciousness, she must have known that eventually someone would come for her. Someone would demand the truth she was hiding. Someone would break the barrier, no matter how much protection it offered. Her vigil was always temporary, a delaying action against inevitable human curiosity. When she falls, when the barrier breaks, when the blood moon rises, Rom's sacrifice finally ends. But so does her protection. The hunter who killed her must now navigate a reality without safety nets, without gradual revelation, without the mercy of ignorance that allowed them to develop their capabilities. Incrementally, they demanded truth. Now they must learn to survive in a world where cosmic horror is no longer hidden, but manifest and immediate. This is the price of breaking Rom's barrier. Not just the unleashing of cosmic truth on Yharnam, but the loss of the protective system that made gradual cosmic education possible. After Rom, there are no more training wheels. Cosmic reality operates at full intensity, and those who encounter it must either ascend or be destroyed. There is no comfortable middle ground anymore, no way to engage with cosmic truth at a safe distance. The hunter chose this path. Every player chooses it because the game's structure demands it. But the choice still matters, still carries moral weight, still has consequences that ripple through every subsequent moment. Rom's death is presented as progress, but feels like tragedy. Her defeat opens the path forward, but closes the path back to innocence. The breaking point breaks everyone, Rom and Hunter, and all of Yharnam, and what comes after can never be the same as what came before. The immediate aftermath of Rom's death transforms Yharnam in ways both visible and subtle. The blood moon's appearance is the most obvious change. That vast red orb hanging in the sky, where before there was only pale luminescence. But this celestial transformation is merely the most dramatic symptom of a fundamental shift in reality's structure throughout the city. The amygdalas, those towering great ones that were always present but imperceptible, now become visible to anyone with even moderate insight. They cling to cathedral roofs, hang from building facades, perch on monuments and structures throughout the city. Their appearance is not sudden arrival, but revelation. They were always there, always watching, always present. Roman's barrier simply prevented human awareness from registering their existence. For Yharnam's citizens, this sudden perception of the amygdalas is catastrophic. Imagine living your entire life in a city, walking familiar streets, passing recognizable buildings daily, then in a single night, discovering that massive alien creatures have been clinging to those buildings all along. Your reality doesn't just change, it's retroactively recontextualized. Everything you thought you knew about your environment was fundamentally incomplete. The psychological impact drives many citizens immediately mad. The city's streets, which were already dangerous with beasts and aggressive infected humans, become utterly chaotic. People flee their homes in terror, only to encounter more horrors. Others barricade themselves inside, trying to shut out the impossible revelations that now flood their awareness. A few unfortunate souls, possessed of enough insight to perceive the amygdalas, but lacking the mental framework to process this perception, simply break. Their consciousness cannot integrate the revelation, and they collapse into states resembling catatonia or rabid madness. The healing church's infrastructure, already strained by the beast scourge, collapses entirely under the weight of this new crisis. Church hunters find themselves facing not just beasts, but citizens driven mad by cosmic revelation. The blood ministration, which was supposed to cure all ailments, proves worse than useless against sanity-destroying cosmic awareness. If anything, those who have consumed the most old blood are most vulnerable to the mind-breaking effects of perceiving cosmic truth directly. Cathedral Ward, previously a bastion of relative order, descends into chaos. The church counters, who once maintained ceremonies and rituals, now wander the streets, speaking in tongues, their minds overwhelmed by cosmic awareness their training never prepared them for. Church giants, those massive beings, created through extensive blood ministration, become unpredictable and violent, their already limited intelligence shattered by perceptions. They lack the cognitive capacity to process. Yahar'gul, the village of unseen nightmares, undergoes its own transformation. This area was already closely connected to cosmic forces through the school of Mensis's experiments, but Rom's barrier had kept certain aspects of their work contained. With the barrier's fall, the nightmare realms that Yahar'gul touches become more directly accessible. The boundary between physical Yahar'gul and nightmare Yahar'gul grows thinner, more permeable, until they begin to overlap in disturbing ways. The school of Mensis experiments with the nightmare realm, which were already disastrous, reach new levels of catastrophe. Their attempt to commune with Great Ones directly, to achieve cosmic awareness through ritualistic means, rather than gradual insight accumulation, was always doomed to failure. But with Rom's barrier gone, the cosmic forces they've been trying to contact can now respond more directly, more powerfully, and more destructively. Upper Cathedral Ward, home to the choir's research, experiences perhaps the most dramatic transformation. The choir had been attempting to achieve the kind of cosmic communion that Rom represented, trying to replicate her success while avoiding her loss of humanity. With Rom's barrier gone, their subjects suddenly find themselves exposed to the full intensity of cosmic awareness without adequate preparation. The result is mass transformation into kin, but unlike Rom's controlled transformation, these are chaotic, painful, incomplete changes that produce beings trapped between states of existence. The Garden of Eyes near Bergenworth swells with new members as scholars and church officials who had been experimenting with eyes and cosmic perception suddenly find their gradual research accelerated past safety limits. Their heads bloat with unwanted eyes, their consciousness fragmenting across multiple simultaneous perceptions. They gain the sight they sought, but lose the cohesive self necessary to make use of that sight meaningfully. For NPCs who survive the initial chaos, the aftermath of Rom's death forces difficult choices. Those with naturally lower insight levels might remain partially protected, unable to perceive the full horror of what's happening. They see the city burning, people going mad, social order collapsing, but they might not see the amygdalas or comprehend the cosmic dimensions of the catastrophe. Their ignorance, while limiting their understanding, also protects their sanity. NPCs with higher insight face the opposite problem. They perceive everything, understand the cosmic nature of the crisis, recognize the fundamental impossibility of what they're witnessing. This understanding should help them cope, should provide framework for processing the revelation. But for most, the gap between intellectual understanding and emotional processing proves too vast. They know what they're seeing, but that knowledge doesn't make the sight any more bearable. Ariana, the woman of pleasure, who offered her blood to the hunter, represents one of the most tragic transformations. Already connected to cosmic forces through her unknown bloodline, Rom's death leaves her vulnerable to direct cosmic influence. Without the barrier to moderate her exposure, she becomes a vector for cosmic birth, carrying something that should never exist within her, ultimately producing a creature that's neither fully Kit One nor fully human. Her fate demonstrates what Rom's barrier was protecting women like her from: the cosmic reproductive agenda operating without restraint. Gilbert, the ailing man who helped the hunter at the beginning of their journey, succumbs fully to the beast scourge after Rom's death. The stress of the cosmic revelation, combined with his already advanced infection, pushes him past the point of no return. He transforms completely, losing all human awareness, becoming one more beast among many. Rom's barrier might have bought him more time, might have let him die as a human rather than transform. Her death accelerates his loss of humanity. The chapel dweller, that grotesque but kind creature who offers sanctuary to lost souls, finds his refuge increasingly meaningless after Rom's death. The chapel was supposed to be a safe place, protected by distance from the worst of Yharnam's horrors, but with cosmic truth flooding the city without restraint, nowhere is truly safe anymore. The dweller continues trying to help, continues offering shelter, but the protection he can provide becomes increasingly inadequate against cosmic threats that transcend physical danger. Patches the spider, existing in the nightmare realms connected to Yharnam, notices the shift immediately. The barriers between nightmare and reality have weakened. His ability to interact with and influence the physical world increases. This should please him, should expand his opportunities for mischief and manipulation. But even Patches, who has learned to navigate nightmare spaces with some skill, seems unsettled by the completeness of the barrier's collapse. Rom's protection benefited even those who operated in the spaces between worlds. The transformation extends beyond just human NPCs and structures. The environment itself changes in subtle ways. Moonlit areas become more luminous, more overtly supernatural. The fog that hangs over certain districts thickens, carrying cosmic influence more tangibly. The very air seems heavier, harder to breathe, as if reality's fabric has become denser, more resistant to normal physical laws. Beasts throughout the city undergo changes as well. Many become larger, more aggressive, more obviously influenced by cosmic forces rather than merely biological transformation. The line between beast plague and cosmic corruption, always blurry, essentially disappears after Rom's death. Beasts that retained some fragments of human intelligence lose even those remnants, as cosmic influence overwhelms whatever remained of their former consciousness. New creatures appear in areas that were previously free of infestation. Brain-wielding enemies, which should only exist in nightmare spaces, begin manifesting in physical Yharnam. The Garden of Eyes spawns new members faster than before. Celestial beings, those writhing cosmic servants that normally inhabit only the highest reaches of cosmic awareness, become visible and dangerous in areas they previously couldn't touch. The city's architecture begins to reflect cosmic influence more overtly. Buildings that looked merely Gothic and foreboding take on impossible geometries. Stairways lead to places they shouldn't connect to. Doors open onto views that make no spatial sense. The physical laws that govern mundane reality become suggestions rather than rules, and Yharnam's structure warps to accommodate cosmic truth. Water throughout the city takes on the qualities of Moonside Lake. It becomes more than just water, transforming into a medium that carries cosmic awareness, that connects physical locations to nightmare realms, that serves as a conduit for forces beyond normal matter. Anyone who drinks this changed water might find themselves exposed to cosmic influence they're unprepared to handle. The bell system, which controls access to various locations and summons cooperative hunters, becomes unreliable after Rom's death. The cosmic frequencies that these bells operate on are no longer properly filtered. Ringing a bell might summon not just other hunters, but cosmic entities, nightmare creatures, things that have no business entering physical reality, but can now cross over more easily with Rom's barrier gone. Perhaps most disturbing is the change to time itself within Yharnam. The night was already endless, trapped in a cycle that prevented morning from ever arriving. But after Rom's death, time becomes even more fluid and unreliable. Cause and effect relationships loosen. Events happen out of sequence. The past, present, and future seem to overlap in ways that suggest time itself is a barrier that has weakened along with Rom's cosmic filter. For the hunter who caused all this by killing Rom, the aftermath presents a complex emotional and practical challenge. On one hand, you progressed in your hunt. You achieved your goal of moving forward, of uncovering deeper truths about Yharnam's curse. On the other hand, you witnessed directly the consequences of your action. Every person driven mad, every new horror unleashed, every bit of suffering that follows, all trace back to your decision to break Rom's barrier. The game offers no judgment on this. There's no morality system that penalizes you for Rom's death. NPCs don't blame you, because most don't realize what you did. The cosmic forces certainly don't care. You're left to form your own assessment of whether breaking the barrier was necessary, justified, or simply the inevitable result of human nature's refusal to accept comfortable ignorance. What's clear is that Yharnam after Rome is fundamentally different from Yharnam before Rome. The city was always cursed, always suffering, always dangerous. But Rome's barrier had provided a kind of order to that suffering, a structure that made navigation and survival possible for those with sufficient skill and determination. After her death, that structure collapses into chaos. The rules change. The dangers multiply. The cosmic horror that was always present becomes manifest and overwhelming. This transformation is irreversible. There's no way to restore Rom's barrier once it's been broken. No ritual or item or action can put the veil back in place. The hunter has irrevocably altered Yharnam's reality, forced it from one state into another, and must now navigate the consequences of that transformation. This irreversibility gives Rom's death a weight that many boss encounters lack. You didn't just defeat an enemy, you changed the fundamental nature of your environment. In the long term, this transformation represents the beginning of Yharnam's final spiral into complete cosmic integration. The city was always doomed, always moving toward an ending where it would be consumed by forces beyond human comprehension. Rom's barrier delayed that ending, gave the city more time, allowed more people to live out their lives before the final collapse. Her death accelerates the timeline, bringing the inevitable ending closer, ensuring that fewer people will escape the cosmic horror that was always waiting to consume them. Yet, for the hunter, this acceleration is necessary to achieve your goals, to progress in your quest, to potentially ascend to cosmic awareness yourself. You need access to the truths Rom was hiding. Her death, however catastrophic for others, represents progress for you. This is the fundamental selfishness of the hunt. Your advancement requires others' suffering, and you pursue it anyway, because the alternative is stagnation. Rom's death thus represents not just a turning point in the game's narrative, but a moment that encapsulates Bloodborne's entire philosophical stance on the pursuit of knowledge. Understanding comes at a cost. Truth destroys comfort. Enlightenment requires sacrifice, often sacrifice imposed on others rather than borne by the seeker themselves. The blood moon rises because the hunter demanded it, and everyone in Yharnam pays the price for that demand. Chapter 10. The philosophical weight of vacuous existence. Rom's title, The Vacuous Spider, carries philosophical implications that extend far beyond simple description of her mental state. The concept of vacuity, of emptiness, of absence, becomes central to understanding not just Rom herself, but the entire cosmic horror Bloodborne presents. What does it mean to be vacuous, while simultaneously maintaining the most important barrier between reality states? How can emptiness perform crucial functions? These paradoxes point toward deeper truths about consciousness, sacrifice, and the nature of cosmic existence. In Buddhist philosophy, emptiness, or shunyata, represents not absence, but rather freedom from fixed essence. Things lack inherent, independent existence. They exist only in relation to other things. Applied to Rome, her vacuity might represent not lack of consciousness, but lack of fixed self. She maintains the barrier precisely because she has no personal identity to interfere with that function. Her emptiness is her capability. Western philosophy offers different frameworks. Existentialists might view Rome's vacuity as a kind of radical freedom, a state where essence no longer precedes or follows existence. She simply is, performing her function without the burdens of meaning-making or identity construction that characterize human consciousness. From this perspective, her transformation represented liberation from the anxiety of selfhood, though at the terrible cost of everything that makes existence meaningful. The tragic irony is that Rom achieved this state through pursuit of the opposite. As a scholar at Bergenworth, she presumably sought fullness, not emptiness. She wanted more knowledge, more understanding, more awareness. The transformation granted cosmic consciousness, that fullness of perception she sought, but required the emptying of self as payment. She gained everything and lost everything simultaneously. This trade, cosmic awareness for personal identity, represents Bloodborne's central meditation on the cost of knowledge. Every tradition warns about forbidden knowledge, about truths that destroy those who learn them. But Bloodborne asks a more precise question. What if the destruction isn't merely psychological breakdown, but actual dissolution of self? What if cosmic truth requires so much consciousness to perceive that there's no space left for the personal identity that sought that truth? Rom embodies this philosophical problem in its purest form. She succeeded in the quest for cosmic awareness. She achieved the goal that motivated generations of Bergenworth scholars. And in succeeding, she ceased to exist as Rom in any meaningful sense. The vacancy of her existence is both the price of success and the indicator of that success. Only by becoming empty could she hold cosmic fullness. This has profound implications for anyone who pursues cosmic truth in Bloodborne's universe. If the endpoint of cosmic knowledge is vacancy, if understanding requires self-erasure, then what's the point of the journey? You might gain the cosmos, but lose yourself, which means in a very real sense you won't be present to experience or appreciate what you've gained. This is not ignorance dying, but knowledge consuming the knower. The hunter faces this same threat throughout their journey. Each increment of insight brings them closer to cosmic awareness, but also closer to the vacancy that awareness requires. High insight hunters already experience changes to their consciousness, their perception, their interaction with reality. At what point does accumulation of insight begin to erode the self that's accumulating it? At what threshold does the hunter become less a person and more a function, like Rom? The game suggests that some form of self-preservation is possible through repeated death and resurrection in the hunter's dream. Each time the hunter dies, they return with identity intact, suggesting that the dream somehow protects against the self-erosion that insight normally causes. But this protection is itself a trap, a way of preserving the hunter's utility to the moon, presence, while preventing them from achieving true cosmic transcendence. Rem had no such protection. Her transformation was one way and permanent. She became vacuous and would remain vacuous forever, serving her function until someone destroyed her physical form. There was no cycle of death and rebirth to preserve her identity, no cosmic patron maintaining her selfhood for ulterior purposes. She simply dissolved into function, and that dissolution was the endpoint of her journey. The philosophical question becomes whether Ro made a choice or a mistake. If she understood the full cost of transformation before undergoing it, then her sacrifice represents perhaps the most selfless act in Bloodborne's universe. She chose to erase herself from existence to protect others from cosmic revelation. This would be heroism of the highest order, self-sacrifice so complete that even the self that made the sacrifice is erased. But if she didn't fully understand, if the transformation surprised her, if she expected to retain more of herself through the process, then her fate represents the universe's cruelest joke. She pursued knowledge, expecting to expand herself, to become more, and instead contracted down to nothing, to pure function without consciousness, to appreciate or regret that function. This would be tragedy, not heroism. The game provides no definitive answer to which interpretation is correct. Rom's vacancy means she can't explain her own experience. Willem, who might have witnessed her transformation, lacks the communication ability to share what he saw. The other scholars who were present either fled or underwent their own transformations. The truth of Rom's choice or mistake died with her humanity, leaving only the functioning shell and the philosophical questions that shell raises. The concept of vacancy also relates to Zen Buddhist ideas about the empty mirror mind that reflects reality without distortion, because it contains no self to impose its own interpretations. Rome, in becoming vacuous, might have become a perfect cosmic mirror, reflecting truth without addition or subtraction. The barrier she maintains isn't a lie or deception, but a reflection of what different consciousness states can safely perceive. She shows humans what human consciousness can handle, filtering out what would destroy human awareness. From this perspective, Rome's vacancy is necessity, not tragedy. To serve as accurate filter between different reality states, she must lack preferences, judgments, or personal interests that might skew her function. She maintains the barrier exactly where it should be, because she has no self-interest pushing her to place it elsewhere. Her emptiness ensures her accuracy, yet this reading, while philosophically satisfying, doesn't eliminate the tragedy. Even if vacancy was necessary for her function, that doesn't make the loss of her humanity any less heartbreaking. A mirror might reflect perfectly, but it experiences nothing. It has no awareness of its own existence, no capacity for joy or sorrow, no engagement with the reality it so accurately reflects. If Rama is merely a mirror, perfectly empty and perfectly functional, then the scholar she once was has been completely annihilated. The spider form she inhabits might represent physical manifestation of this philosophical vacancy. Spiders, in many traditions, are associated with weaving, with creating patterns and connections. But they're also seen as having alien consciousness, as operating on principles fundamentally different from mammalian awareness. Rom's a spider form suggests a kind of consciousness that's purely functional, that creates webs and connections, not through intention or desire, but through automatic response to environmental conditions. Her lack of aggressive behavior in the fight reinforces this interpretation. Rome doesn't attack because she lacks the anger or fear that would motivate attack. She simply tries to continue her function, maintain the barrier, and avoid damage to her physical form. When damage becomes unavoidable, she defends, but without emotion or personal investment. She's like a program running its code, responding to inputs according to fixed parameters. This mechanistic quality makes her both more and less than human. More because she performs functions humans couldn't, maintains awareness across states humans can't perceive, serves purposes that transcend personal interest. Less because she lacks subjectivity, lacks the inner experience that characterizes consciousness as we understand it. She is, perhaps, consciousness without a subject, awareness without an aware entity. Philosophy of mind has grappled with this possibility. Can consciousness exist without a unified subject experiencing it? Can there be awareness that isn't someone's awareness? Rom suggests the answer is yes, that cosmic transformation produces exactly this kind of subjectless consciousness. You can perceive and process and perform functions without any central you experiencing these processes. The vacancy at her core isn't lack of consciousness, but lack of unified experiential subject. This has disturbing implications for anyone pursuing cosmic awareness. The fear isn't death exactly, but something potentially worse, continuing to exist, continuing to function, continuing to perceive, but with no one inside experiencing any of it. Your consciousness becomes a series of processes running without an operator. Awareness without awareness of awareness. This is a form of existence that manages to be both too much and too little simultaneously. Rome exists in this state, eternally, until her physical form is destroyed. She perceives cosmic truth constantly, maintains universal barriers, perpetually, serves crucial cosmic functions forever. But there's no Rome inside, experiencing any of this. No sense of accomplishment or burden or sacrifice. Just endless function without functionary, performance without performer, the emptiness that knows everything and feels nothing. When the hunter destroys her physical form, they're not quite committing murder because there's arguably no one there to murder. They're disrupting a function, breaking a system, terminating a process, but they're not ending a conscious being's subjective experience, because that experience was already gone. Rome's death is tragedy, not because she suffers in dying, but because she already suffered everything that matters when she became vacuous. Her physical death is almost mercy, ending the mockery of existence she'd been trapped in. Yet, even this interpretation contains a trap. If Rome is truly vacuous, truly empty, then she doesn't suffer her own vacancy. Suffering requires a subject who suffers, and vacancy precludes that subject. The tragedy is therefore not Rome's tragedy, but ours, the observers who witness what was lost, even though Rome herself cannot recognize it. We suffer on behalf of an emptiness that cannot suffer for itself. This philosophical weight is what makes Rom such a powerful figure in Bloodborne's narrative. She represents the endpoint of the very quest the game revolves around, the pursuit of cosmic knowledge. And that endpoint is vacancy, emptiness, loss of self. Every hunter who progresses through the game is implicitly walking Rom's path, moving toward the same state she achieved. The blood moon, the cosmic awareness, the transcendence, all of it leads toward the vacancy that Rom embodies. The question Bloodborne poses through Rom's existence is whether this journey is worth taking. If cosmic truth requires self-erasure, if understanding means no one will be present to understand, if enlightenment produces vacancy, then should we pursue these things at all? Or is the human state, limited and ignorant as it might be, preferable to the vacant cosmic awareness Rom represents? Different players will answer differently, but the game forces the question through Rom's existence. Every time you fight her, every time you watch her massive form collapse, every time the blood moon rises because you broke her barrier, you're confronted with this philosophical weight. You demanded cosmic truth. You pursued insight despite warnings. You refused to accept the comfortable ignorance Rom maintained. And in doing so, you moved one step closer to the vacancy she embodies. The philosophical brilliance of Rom's design is that she proves the horror of cosmic knowledge isn't in the knowledge itself, but in what knowing costs. The great ones aren't horrifying because they're malicious. Cosmic truth isn't dangerous because it's evil. The horror comes from the revelation that understanding requires vacancy, that knowing means ceasing to be the self that wanted to know. Rom's vacuity is the final answer to the question of forbidden knowledge. It's forbidden because consuming it means consuming yourself. Chapter 11. Conclusion. The Spider Who Holds the Sky. In the end, Rom the Vacuous Spider remains one of Bloodborne's most profound and tragic figures, precisely because she embodies contradictions that can't be resolved. She is guardian and prisoner, protector and tool, achievement and warning, all at once. Her existence poses questions about consciousness, sacrifice, and the price of knowledge that no answer can satisfy, because the very act of achieving understanding erases the entity capable of appreciating that understanding. We began this journey exploring who Rim was before her transformation, a scholar at Bergenworth during the golden age of cosmic discovery. We've traced her path from human consciousness through transformation into something simultaneously more and less than human. We've examined her role as barrier keeper, maintaining the veil between mundane and cosmic reality so humans could live in protective ignorance. We've considered her place in the Great One's agenda, serving as filter and test for humanity's gradual exposure to cosmic truth. Through all of this examination, one fact remains central. Rom gave up everything she was to protect everyone else from what she learned. Whether she made this choice freely or was tricked into it, whether she understood the full cost or discovered it too late, the result is the same. She ceased to exist as an individual to become a function, a cosmic barrier maintenance system housed in an organic shell. The barrier she maintained gave Yharnam years, perhaps decades, perhaps even longer, of relative protection from cosmic revelation. During that time, people lived, loved, worked, dreamed, all under the protection of ignorance they never knew they possessed. The blood moon waited in the sky. The amygdalas clung to buildings. The cosmic truth pressed against the boundaries of perception, but Rome held it all back. She was the finger in the dike, the last defense against the flood of cosmic awareness that would eventually drown Yharnam in impossible truth. When the hunter finally destroys her, when that barrier breaks and the blood moon rises, we witness the culmination of two different kinds of tragedy. There's Rom's personal tragedy, the loss of self that made her barrier function possible, the sacrifice that no one recognized or appreciated. And there's Yharnam's collective tragedy, the forced revelation of cosmic truth to a population unprepared to process it, the unleashing of horrors that ignorance had kept safely suppressed. Both tragedies were inevitable. Rom's transformation was necessary to create the barrier in the first place. Her death was inevitable because human nature refuses to accept limits on knowledge, will always pursue truth, regardless of cost. The hunter who kills Rom is not villainous, but merely human, driven by the same curiosity and refusal of ignorance that motivated every scholar at Bergenworth, including Rom herself, before her transformation. This inevitability is what makes Rom's story so powerful. She didn't fail, she succeeded in her function for as long as was possible, maintaining the barrier until a hunter strong enough and determined enough appeared to break it. Her death represents not inadequacy, but the completion of her purpose. She was always meant to be temporary protection, a delay rather than a solution, a way of buying time for humanity to potentially develop individuals who might survive cosmic revelation. Whether any humans successfully navigate this revelation, whether the hunter themselves achieves genuine cosmic transcendence without vacancy, remains an open question that Bloodborne explores through its multiple endings. But Rom's role in that larger story is complete. With her death, she held the barrier as long as it could be held. She protected humanity as fully as protection was possible. She sacrificed herself as completely as sacrifice can be made. The spider imagery remains significant to the end. Spiders sit at the centers of webs, waiting, maintaining the connections they've created, serving as both creators and guardians of the patterns they've woven. Rom sat at the center of Moonside Lake, waiting, maintaining the barrier she'd become, serving as both creator and guardian of the protective ignorance she'd woven around Yharnam. When the web breaks, when the spider dies, the pattern collapses immediately and irreversibly. Her vacancy, that emptiness at her core, might be understood finally as a kind of cosmic selflessness, so complete it erases the self entirely. She didn't just sacrifice her time or her comfort, or even her life. She sacrificed her very existence as a conscious individual. This is beyond martyrdom, beyond heroism, beyond any conventional framework for understanding sacrifice. She gave up the ability to be anyone, to experience anything, to know that she'd given anything up. If there's mercy anywhere in Rom's story, it's precisely in this vacancy. She doesn't remember who she was. She doesn't regret what she lost. She doesn't suffer the knowledge of her own sacrifice. The vacancy that makes her tragic to observers protects her from experiencing her own tragedy. She is a function without awareness of functioning, a sacrifice without awareness of sacrificing, a hero without awareness of heroism. When players encounter Rome, when they fight her and eventually kill her, they're participating in one of gaming's most philosophically complex moments. The fight itself is mechanical, straightforward, another boss to be defeated in a game full of challenging encounters. But the narrative weight of that fight, the implications of breaking Rom's barrier, the consequences that follow, all of this elevates the encounter beyond simple gameplay challenge. You're not just fighting a monster, you're destroying a protection system that someone became to shield you from truth you're unprepared to handle. You're forcing cosmic revelation on an entire city because you personally demand to know what lies beyond perception's limits. You're trading collective safety for individual progress, sacrificing the many for the advancement of the one. These are the actions of a villain in most narratives, but here they're simply the inevitable result of human nature's refusal to accept comfortable ignorance. Bloodborne doesn't judge these actions explicitly, but Rome's design judges them implicitly. Her passive behavior during the fight, her attempts to flee rather than fight, her obvious focus on maintaining her function even as you destroy her. All of this makes clear that you're attacking something that poses no threat to you. The game makes you the aggressor in this encounter, forcing you to recognize your own role in the tragedy that follows. Yet the game also makes clear that this aggression is necessary if you want to progress, to understand, to achieve the goals you've set. There's no way to negotiate with Rom, no path to enlightenment that leaves her barrier intact. The structure of the hunt demands her death. Human nature demands the breaking of her barrier. The tragedy isn't that this happens, but that it must happen, that we are constituted in such a way that comfortable ignorance can never satisfy us permanently. Rom understood this in her final moments of human consciousness. She knew that creating a barrier would only delay revelation, not prevent it. She knew that eventually someone would demand to see what she was hiding. She knew her protection was temporary, and she chose to provide that protection anyway, chose to become vacuous anyway, chose to buy humanity whatever time her barrier could provide, even though she knew that time would eventually run out. This is why Rom holds the sky, metaphorically speaking. The blood moon hangs above Yamanura throughout the game, red and terrible, and full of cosmic significance. But before Rom's death, humans don't perceive it. They see a normal moon, pale and distant and unthreatening. Rom's barrier is what holds the blood moon at bay, what keeps the sky appearing normal, what prevents cosmic truth from crashing down on unprepared consciousness. When she dies, she literally drops the sky. The blood moon becomes visible because Rome is no longer there to filter perception. The weight she'd been holding, the cosmic truth she'd been managing, falls immediately onto everyone in Yharnam. She was holding the sky, and when she could no longer hold it, the sky fell, and everyone beneath it suffered the consequences. This image of Rome holding the sky, bearing weight no one else could bear, maintaining protection no one else appreciated, defines her significance in Bloodborne's narrative. She is the unacknowledged guardian, the forgotten protector, the sacrifice made so complete that even memory of the sacrifice was erased. She held the sky until she couldn't, and when she fell, the sky fell with her. For all of us who play Bloodborne, who pursue insight, who demand cosmic truth, who refuse comfortable ignorance. Lunar stands as both warning and mirror. She shows us where the path of knowledge leads, to vacancy, to loss of self, to existence as pure function without functional self. She demonstrates the price of cosmic awareness. Everything you are exchanged for the ability to perceive everything that is. Whether this trade is worth making remains a question each player must answer for themselves. But Rom's existence, her sacrifice, her vacancy, her ultimate defeat, all argue that the trade might cost more than anyone should pay. Cosmic truth might not be worth losing yourself to obtain. The sky might be too heavy for any individual to hold, and the barrier between ignorance and enlightenment might exist for reasons that justify maintaining it rather than breaking it. Yet we break it anyway. We kill Rom. We demand truth. We refuse the protection she died to provide. This is what makes us human in Bloodborne's universe. Our inability to accept limitations on knowledge, even when those limitations protect us. We would rather force cosmic truth and suffer its consequences than live in comfortable ignorance under Rom's protection. In the end, Rom the vacuous spider taught us that some guardians protect us, not by fighting our enemies, but by hiding them from our perception. That some barriers exist for our benefit, not our limitation. That some sacrifices are so complete, they erase even awareness of the sacrifice being made. And that sometimes, the most profound tragedy is not that a guardian falls, but that their falling was always inevitable, written into the structure of consciousness and curiosity that defines what it means to be human. The lake remains, still and silent, moonlight reflecting on its surface. But Rom is gone. The barrier is broken. The blood moon hangs visible in the sky, and Yharnam descends into the final chaos, but Rom's existence had delayed. The spider who held the sky has fallen, and the sky has fallen with her, and all who live beneath that fallen sky must now face truths they were never meant to perceive, protected by nothing except their own inadequate consciousness and the desperate hope that understanding might somehow be survivable after all. Chapter 12: The Lunar Connection and Celestial Symbolism. Throughout Bloodborne, the moon serves as more than mere celestial backdrop. It functions as a cosmic symbol, a source of influence, and perhaps even a conscious entity observing the events below. Rom's connection to lunar forces reveals deeper layers of her purpose and the mechanisms by which cosmic beings interact with mundane reality. Understanding these lunar connections illuminates both Rom's function and the broader cosmology Bloodborne presents. The moon that hangs over Yharnam changes throughout the night. Early in the hunt, it appears pale and distant, casting cold light over the Gothic streets below. This is the filtered moon, the celestial body, as Rom's barrier allows it to be perceived. It seems normal, unremarkable, except for perhaps being slightly larger and more luminous than typical moons. This normalcy is itself deception, a comfortable lie that allows hunters and citizens to navigate the night without confronting cosmic truth. After Rom's death, the blood moon becomes visible. This massive red orb dominates the sky, impossible to ignore. Obviously wrong in ways that can't be rationalized or dismissed. The blood moon was always there, but human perception couldn't register it while Rom maintained her barrier. Her death doesn't change the moon itself, but changes how humans perceive the moon, revealing its true nature. This transformation suggests that the moon in Bloodborne isn't simply a celestial object following natural laws. It's a cosmic phenomenon that exists in multiple states simultaneously, its appearance depending on the perceptual capacity of the observer. The pale moon and blood moon are the same entity viewed through different filters of awareness. Rom controlled which filter humans experienced, keeping them locked into the pale moon perception. But the moon's significance goes deeper than appearance. Lunar phases traditionally govern cycles, particularly reproductive cycles. The moon influences tides, affects animal behavior, marks time's passage. In Bloodborne's cosmology, these traditional associations take on cosmic dimensions. The moon doesn't just influence earthly cycles. It is cosmic influence made manifest, the visible face of forces that operate beyond normal causation. The Great One's obsession with reproduction connects directly to lunar symbolism. The moon represents fertility, gestation, birth, the endless cycle of creation and renewal. That the Great Ones cannot successfully reproduce despite their vast power becomes even more tragic when viewed through this lunar lens. They command forces associated with the moon, can manipulate perception of celestial bodies, yet cannot achieve the fundamental lunar function of bringing new life into existence. Ruzin's position in Moonside Lake literally places her between Earth and Moon, between mundane reality and cosmic influence. The lake's name itself suggests this liminal position. It's not simply beside the moon or under the moon, but moonside, existing in a spatial relationship to lunar forces that transcends simple geography. The lake serves as a cosmic threshold, a place where lunar influence can be accessed and managed. Water's reflective properties make it ideal for managing lunar energy. The moon's image appears on water's surface, creating a second moon, an earthly mirror of the celestial original. This reflected moon can be manipulated in ways the actual moon cannot. By dwelling in Moonside Lake, Rom positions herself to manage the reflected moon, to control how lunar influence manifests in human perception. The pale moon that humans see might actually be the reflected moon. The lunar image Rom maintains on the surface of cosmic waters. The blood moon is the actual celestial body, visible only to those with sufficient insight to look past the reflection to the reality. Rom's barrier doesn't hide the moon, but maintains the reflection that humans mistake for the real thing. This interpretation explains why Rom's death causes such immediate transformation. When she dies, the reflection she maintained dissipates instantly. Humans who were looking at the reflected pale moon suddenly see past it to the blood moon beyond. The barrier wasn't a wall blocking perception, but a reflection that humans mistook for reality. Rom maintained that misleading reflection to protect them from seeing what lay beyond. Moon presence, that entity controlling the hunter's dream, represents another aspect of lunar influence in Bloodborne. This Great One's very name associates it with the moon, suggesting it might be the consciousness behind or within the celestial body. If the moon itself is aware, if it possesses agency and purpose, then its appearance and influence take on different significance. Moon presence's interest in creating hunter surrogates connects to the broader Great One agenda of finding replacement children. The dream serves as a controlled environment where human consciousness can be gradually exposed to cosmic influence, shaped toward compatibility with Great One existence. Rom's barrier and the dream work in tandem, one protecting the general population, while the other cultivates specific candidates. The relationship between these two systems suggests coordination, perhaps even cooperation between different Great Ones. Rom serves those cosmic entities who recognize that premature revelation destroys potential surrogates. Moon presence serves the same agenda through different means, creating a space where revelation can be carefully controlled. Both approaches aim toward the same goal, producing humans capable of surviving cosmic transformation. The lunar cycle that governs the hunt has no conventional end. Night never gives way to morning. In Yharnam, the city exists in eternal darkness, under constant lunar influence, trapped in a moment that should pass, but never does. This temporal stasis reflects the Great One's own existence, outside normal time. They don't experience duration the way humans do. For them, all moments exist simultaneously, making the distinction between past, present, and future meaningless. Rom's barrier helps maintain this temporal stasis for human perception. By keeping humans locked in limited awareness, she prevents them from perceiving the true nature of time in Yharnam. After her death, temporal anomalies become more obvious, cause and effect relationships loose. Events seem to happen out of sequence. The rigid temporal structure that made human experience coherent begins to collapse. The blood moon's appearance signals not just perceptual change, but temporal change. Humans forced to perceive the blood moon begin experiencing time more like Great Ones. Experience it as a unified field, rather than linear progression. This temporal transformation is even more disorienting than the feeble changes. Humans rely on temporal coherence to make sense of experience. When that coherence fails, sanity often fails with it. Lunar symbolism traditionally associates the moon with madness, with lycanthropy, with transformation between states. The very word lunacy derives from lunar influence. Bloodborne makes this connection literal and cosmic. The moon doesn't simply influence madness. It is cosmic consciousness pressing against human awareness, and prolonged exposure to its influence transforms consciousness in ways that appear as madness to those still operating under normal perceptual constraints. The beast scourge itself might be understood as failed lunar transformation. Those who receive the old blood are being exposed to lunar influence, to cosmic essence associated with the moon and the great ones connected to it. Most recipients lack the perceptual framework to integrate this influence coherently. Their consciousness fragments, their bodies transform, and they become beasts. This is what lunar influence does to humans unprepared for it. Rome's barrier moderated this lunar influence, allowed blood ministration to continue while limiting its most extreme effects. After her death, lunar influence floods in without restraint. The beast transformations accelerate and intensify. More citizens transform more quickly because they're now exposed to the full force of lunar cosmic power that Rome had been filtering. The distinction between pale moon and blood moon might represent different intensities of the same cosmic influence. The pale moon is lunar power at a level humans can survive. The blood moon is that same power at full intensity. Rome maintained the pale moon state, not by blocking lunar influence entirely, but by moderating it, reducing it to levels compatible with human consciousness. Her death removes that moderation. Celestial bodies throughout Bloodborne carry significance beyond normal astronomy. Stars feature prominently in certain covenant descriptions and item lore. Cosmic beings are associated with stellar and lunar phenomena. The sky itself is described as false in certain context, suggesting the celestial sphere humans perceive is another layer of deception. Rome's barrier might extend beyond just the moon to include the entire perceived celestial structure. If true, then her death doesn't just reveal the blood moon, but potentially makes the entire false sky more obvious. The stars humans thought they saw might be cosmic entities observing them. The celestial sphere might be a constructed reality rather than natural cosmos. Breaking Rome's barrier begins to strip away these cosmic deceptions, forcing humans to confront not just that the moon is different, but that their entire understanding of the universe is fundamentally wrong. This expansion of Rome's function makes her sacrifice even more profound. She wasn't just hiding one cosmic truth, but maintaining an entire cosmology that allowed humans to function. The pale moon was just one element of a comprehensive perceptual framework she kept stable. Her death doesn't just change one thing. It begins the collapse of the entire structure of lies that made human existence in Yharnam bearable. The lunar connection explains why Rome takes the form she does. Spiders are traditionally associated with fate, with weaving destiny, with creating connections between separate points. But they're also nocturnal creatures, most active under moonlight, operating in the liminal space between day and night. Rome's spider form makes her a perfect vessel for managing lunar influence, a nocturnal being that creates webs of perceptual protection under the moon she helps disguise. Her children, those smaller spiders that defend her, might be understood as lunar servants, extensions of the moon's influence given limited autonomy. They don't reproduce in normal ways, but spawn from Rome herself, emerging from cosmic essence rather than biological processes. This mirrors the Great One's reproductive problems. Rome can create servants but not true children, extensions of function but not independent beings. The beauty of Moonside Lake, under lunar illumination, creates one of Bloodborne's most aesthetically striking locations. The pale light reflecting on still water, the massive spider dwelling in depths both literal and metaphorical, the sense of cosmic significance permeating the space, all combine to create an environment that's simultaneously peaceful and deeply unsettling. This aesthetic contradiction reflects Rome's own contradictory nature: protector and prisoner, guardian and victim, beautiful and horrifying. When the blood moon rises after Rome's death, this aesthetic transforms dramatically. The red light changes everything. The peaceful moonlit lake becomes a site of cosmic violation. The beauty that suggested protection now reveals itself as prelude to horror. The lunar influence that seemed distant and manageable becomes immediate and overwhelming. The aesthetic shift mirrors the perceptual shift humans experience throughout Yharnam. Understanding Rom's lunar connection reveals her as more than just a barrier keeper. She was a cosmic light filter, managing how celestial influence reached earthly consciousness. She controlled not just what humans could see, but what they could experience, limiting cosmic radiation to levels compatible with survival. Her sacrifice allowed humans to live under a moon that should have driven them immediately mad, to experience night without confronting the full cosmic horror that night contains. Chapter 13. The Water's Edge and Bergenworth's Legacy. Bergenworth College sits at the water's edge, overlooking Moonside Lake, positioned perfectly to observe and access the cosmic threshold. Rom maintains this geographic placement is not coincidental. The college's entire purpose, from its founding through its eventual abandonment, centered on exploring the boundary between human and cosmic consciousness. Bergenworth is where that exploration began, where it went wrong, and where it continues even now, through Rom's eternal vigil. The college's architecture reflects its dual nature. Parts remain clearly human in scale and purpose: lecture halls, libraries, research chambers designed for mortal scholars pursuing earthly knowledge. Other parts show signs of cosmic influence: impossible angles, spaces larger than they should be, chambers that seem to exist partially outside normal geometry. Bergenworth has been transformed by its proximity to cosmic forces, its very structure warped by continuous exposure to truths beyond normal comprehension. Master Willem remains at the college, sitting in his chair overlooking the lake, transformed but not destroyed, aware but not quite mad. His presence marks him as perhaps the only successful navigation of the path Rome's transformation represents. He achieved cosmic awareness without complete loss of self, though what remains of his humanity is questionable. His transformation demonstrates that total vacancy isn't inevitable, but that preserving any selfhood through cosmic elevation requires immense will and careful management. Willem's choice to remain at Bergenworth, rather than join Lawrence in founding the Healing Church, represents one of history's crucial divergences. Had he gone with Lawrence, had he applied his understanding of cosmic truth to the Church's blood ministration practices, the outcome might have been very different. But Willem understood something Lawrence didn't: that cosmic truth and human society are fundamentally incompatible. Any attempt to integrate cosmic awareness into mundane civilization would inevitably destroy that civilization. By remaining at Bergenworth, Willem contained the cosmic contamination. The college became a quarantine zone, a place where those who had glimpsed cosmic truth could exist without spreading that truth to the general population. Rom's transformation and her subsequent barrier maintenance formalized this containment. She prevented cosmic truth from escaping Bergenworth, kept it locked in the college and the lake, away from Yharnam's streets, where it would destroy innocent minds. The students who remained with Willem underwent various transformations. Some became the Garden of Eyes, those pitiful beings with bloated heads, full of unwanted perception. They gained the sight Willem advocated for but lacked the mental framework to integrate it coherently. Others fled before transformation completed, carrying fragments of cosmic knowledge into Yharnam, where that knowledge would fester and mutate. A few, very few, achieved something approaching balanced cosmic awareness, though at costs that made their success questionable. The college's library contains knowledge that should never have been uncovered. Ancient texts, transcribed from plethysmarian sources, research notes documenting early blood experiments, philosophical treatises attempting to reconcile cosmic awareness with human consciousness. Reading these texts without proper preparation drives most readers mad. The information itself is corrupting, restructuring consciousness in ways that make normal human existence impossible. Rumi likely spent considerable time in this library before her transformation. She would have read the forbidden texts, studied the Pythagorean ruins' secrets, pursued understanding with the dedication that characterized Bergenworth's best scholars. This accumulated knowledge prepared her for transformation, but also made that transformation inevitable. Once you know certain truths, once you perceive certain patterns, there's no returning to comfortable ignorance. You must either transform or be destroyed by the contradiction between what you know and what you are. The lake itself predates Bergenworth's founding. It was always there, always serving as a cosmic threshold, always carrying the potential to become what Rome made it. The college's founders chose this location precisely because they sensed the cosmic significance of the water. They built their institution at the water's edge so they could study the boundary between worlds, never fully understanding that studying such boundaries inevitably leads to crossing them. Water appears throughout Bloodborne in locations of cosmic significance: the fishing hamlet, where Koz washed ashore, the pools in nightmare realms, the lake at Bergenworth. In each case, water serves as a medium for cosmic influence, a substance that can carry forces normal matter cannot contain. Water's fluidity makes it ideal for this purpose. It takes the shape of whatever contains it, adapts to cosmic influence, facilitates transformation between states. Moonside Lake specifically serves as cosmic mirror, reflecting not just lunar light, but cosmic truth itself. Looking into its still surface, one sees not just their own reflection, but glimpses of what they might become, shadows of cosmic potential. This is why the lake attracts and repels simultaneously. Approaching it feels like approaching destiny, seeing possibilities both terrible and transcendent. Rom dwells beneath this mirrored surface, existing in the space between reflection and reality. She maintains her barrier from within the cosmic mirror, ensuring that what humans see when they look at the water is merely their own reflection, rather than the cosmic truth lurking in the depths. Her position allows her to observe both sides of the threshold, to see humanity from below and cosmic reality from within. The path through Bergenworth to reach Rom requires navigating spaces that grow increasingly touched by cosmic influence. The outer buildings still resemble normal architecture. The inner sanctums show greater distortion. The lake itself exists fully in cosmic space, though it maintains physical presence as well. This gradient of cosmic influence demonstrates how Bergenworth served as a buffer zone, gradually exposing scholars to cosmic reality rather than forcing immediate revelation. This careful gradation was Willem's innovation, his contribution to humanity's attempt to achieve cosmic awareness safely. Rather than pursuing immediate transformation as Lawrence advocated through blood ministration, Willem created an environment where transformation could occur slowly over years or decades. Students could accumulate insight at their own pace, building mental frameworks capable of supporting cosmic awareness before that awareness became overwhelming. Rom represents both the success and failure of this approach. She achieved cosmic awareness through careful preparation, avoided the immediate madness that destroys most who glimpse cosmic truth. But the preparation wasn't sufficient to preserve her humanity. She still became vacuous, still lost herself, still paid the ultimate price for cosmic elevation. Willem's careful approach proved better than Lawrence's reckless blood distribution, but still inadequate for preserving human consciousness through cosmic transformation. The Garden of Eyes serves as monument to this inadequacy. Each of those tragic beings followed Willem's path, accumulated insight carefully, prepared themselves as thoroughly as they could. And each still broke when cosmic awareness finally came, their heads bloated with eyes they couldn't close, their minds fragmenting across too many simultaneous perceptions. They demonstrate that even careful preparation may not be enough. Some truths destroy regardless of how carefully you approach them. Willem's presence overlooking the lake suggests he maintains some form of vigil even now. He watches Rom, watches the barrier she maintains, perhaps mourns what she became, perhaps envies her complete transformation when his own remains frustratingly incomplete. He cannot speak to explain his thoughts or feelings. His transformation has progressed past language, past normal human communication, but his continued presence implies purpose, suggests he's waiting for something, or protecting something, even now. When the hunter arrives at Bergenworth, seeking answers, Willem's gesture toward the lake is his final teaching. He cannot explain what happened here. He cannot warn adequately about what confronting Rom means. He can only point, indicating the direction of truth, and leaving the hunter to decide whether to pursue it. This gesture mirrors Bergenworth's entire philosophy, showing the path, but not forcing anyone to walk it, maintaining that each individual must choose their own relationship with cosmic truth. The college's abandonment makes it a kind of memorial to failed transcendence. These halls once echoed with scholarly debate, with excited discussions of new discoveries, with the intellectual ferment that characterizes institutions at their peak. Now silence reigns, broken only by the shambling footsteps of kin and the occasional hunter seeking Rom. Bergenworth stands as evidence that the pursuit of cosmic knowledge leads not to enlightenment, but to emptiness. Yet, even in abandonment, Bergenworth serves its purpose. It contains cosmic contamination, keeps it from spreading uncontrolled through Yharnam. The kin who dwell here remain in this space, don't venture into the city where their transformed state might spread panic. The forbidden knowledge stays locked in the library, accessed only by those who specifically seek it, and Rom maintains her rare from the lake, using Bergenworth's position at the world's edge to regulate cosmic influence. The tragedy is that Bergenworth's legacy lived on in distorted form through the healing church. Lawrence took the college's discoveries and weaponized them, turned careful research into mass application, transformed gradual enlightenment into forced transformation. The church claimed to continue Bergenworth's work, but actually betrayed its fundamental principles. Where Willem advocated careful approach to cosmic truth, Lawrence demanded immediate results. This impatience doomed Yharnam more surely than any beast play. If Bergenworth had remained humanity's primary approach to cosmic awareness, if Lawrence had never split from Willem, if careful gradual exposure had remained the standard, perhaps Rom's transformation could have been avoided. Perhaps other approaches to achieving cosmic awareness might have been developed. Perhaps humans could have found ways to perceive cosmic truth without losing themselves entirely. But history followed the path it followed. Lawrence founded his church. Blood ministration spread throughout Yharnam. The beast plague emerged as consequence of forced cosmic integration, and Bergenworth became a forgotten ruin, its warnings unheeded, its careful methods abandoned, its ultimate lesson about the cost of cosmic knowledge learned too late to save anyone. Rome remains the last true student of Bergenworth, the final embodiment of Willem's philosophy, taken to its logical conclusion. She achieved what the college sought: cosmic awareness, perception beyond human limits, understanding of truths beyond normal comprehension. And in achieving it, she proved that success in this pursuit is indistinguishable from failure. The victor and the vanquished end in the same state: vacuous, empty, lost. The water at Bergenworth's edge continues its eternal stillness, reflecting moon and sky, hiding depths that contain both promise and horror. Scholars who once studied here are gone, their ambitions dust, their discoveries curse, but the lake remains, and in its depths Rom maintains her vigil until the inevitable moment when that vigil ends and the truth she hides crashes down on a world that will wish she could have held it back forever. Chapter 14. The alternative that never was. In exploring Rom's tragedy, we must consider the paths not taken, the alternatives that might have been, the choices that could have led to different outcomes. What if Rom had refused transformation? What if Willem had found another way? What if humanity had chosen ignorance over knowledge? These counterfactuals illuminate the inevitability of what actually occurred and help us understand why Rom's sacrifice was both necessary and futile. Imagine if Rom had refused Master Willem's offer or request for her to undergo transformation. Bergenworth's research into cosmic truth would have continued without barrier protection. The scholars there would have continued accumulating insight, exposing themselves to cosmic influence, gradually transforming into kin, or worse. Eventually, someone at the college would have achieved sufficient cosmic awareness to break through to Great One consciousness without careful mediation. This uncontrolled breakthrough would have been catastrophic. Cosmic truth flooding into human awareness without any protective barrier, without Rom's mediation, would have created a cascade effect. The scholar who broke through would have become a beacon, drawing cosmic attention to Bergenworth. Great Ones would have focused their influence on that location, attempting to convert the breakthrough into successful surrogate creation. The cosmic contamination would have spread from Bergenworth throughout the region. Within months, perhaps weeks, the entire area around Bergenworth would have become Nightmare Realm. Reality's fabric would have worn thin, allowing nightmare and mundane space to overlap. Citizens would have been forced to perceive cosmic truth without any preparation whatsoever. The death toll would have been immense, not from violence but from mass psychological collapse, as entire populations confronted impossible truths. Simultaneously, Yharnam itself might have survived this initial catastrophe by virtue of distance from Bergenworth, but the healing church's blood ministration practices were already creating their own pathway to cosmic influence. Without Rom's barrier to moderate the effects of old blood exposure, the transformation of church officials and blood recipients would have accelerated dramatically. The beast plague would have emerged faster, spread wider, killed more efficiently. Within a generation, possibly sooner, human civilization in the region would have collapsed entirely. Survivors would have been those who somehow avoided both blood ministration and cosmic revelation, a vanishingly small population. These survivors would have found themselves in a world fundamentally changed, where nightmare and reality bleed together, where cosmic entities manifest freely, where the very laws of physics become suggestions rather than rules. Rom's transformation prevented this timeline. By becoming the barrier keeper, she gave humanity breathing room, time to adapt to cosmic influence gradually, rather than all at once. Her sacrifice bought decades of relatively normal existence for Yharnam's citizens, allowed several generations to live and die without confronting cosmic horror directly. This was not salvation, but merely delay. Yet delay has value when the alternative is immediate catastrophe. But what if Willem had found a different solution? What if instead of transforming Rom into a barrier keeper, he had developed methods for teaching humans to perceive cosmic truth safely? This seems like it should have been possible. After all, Willem himself achieved partial cosmic awareness without complete loss of humanity. Perhaps with enough research, enough experimentation, enough time, he could have developed a reliable curriculum for cosmic education. The problem with this scenario is time. Developing safe methods for cosmic awareness would have required generations of careful research, gradual refinement, countless test subjects willing to risk their sanity for incremental progress. Meanwhile, Lawrence's healing church was already distributing blood throughout Yharnam, already accelerating the timeline, already creating conditions where cosmic influence would break through, regardless of whether humans were prepared for it. Willem faced impossible choices. He could spend decades or longer developing safe cosmic awareness methods, while Lawrence's church created increasingly dangerous conditions. He could try to stop Lawrence, potentially through force, sparking civil conflict that would benefit no one, or he could implement an immediate, if imperfect solution, transform someone into a barrier keeper who could protect humanity while he continued researching better approaches. Rom chose to be that solution, or perhaps Willem chose her. Either way, her transformation represented acceptance that perfect solutions don't exist, that sometimes the best available option is still tragic, that protecting humanity might require sacrificing individuals who embody humanity's highest qualities. Rom's transformation was the least bad option available, which makes it no less heartbreaking. Consider another alternative: humanity simply choosing ignorance. What if instead of pursuing cosmic truth, instead of excavating Paleomerian ruins, instead of studying the old blood, humans had simply said no? What if, when faced with forbidden knowledge, they had the collective wisdom to recognize some truths are better left undiscovered? This scenario is appealing, but fundamentally incompatible with human nature. We are curious by constitution. We cannot see a locked door without wanting to know what's behind it. We cannot encounter mystery without seeking explanation. This drive to understand, to uncover, to know, is essential to what makes us human. Asking humanity to choose ignorance is asking humanity to become something other than human. Moreover, the Paleomerian ruins were already there, already containing cosmic knowledge, already representing a path to truth that someone would eventually follow. If not Bergenworth scholars, then someone else would have explored those depths. If not Master Willem, then some other ambitious individual would have found the old blood and recognized its potential. The discoveries that led to Yharnam's curse were inevitable consequences of human nature encountering cosmic opportunity. Perhaps the real alternative that never was involved the Great Ones themselves. What if they had chosen not to pursue surrogate children through humanity? What if they had accepted their reproductive failure, mourned their lost children, and moved on rather than attempting to force humans into roles they weren't suited for? What if cosmic entities had left humanity alone? But this alternative assumes the Great Ones have the kind of agency and emotional control that might make such choice possible. Everything we see in Bloodborne suggests otherwise. The Great Ones are not rational actors making deliberate decisions. They are cosmic forces, operating according to principles that transcend conventional choice. Their yearning for children isn't a preference they could abandon, but a fundamental aspect of their nature, as essential to them as gravity is to matter. Asking Great Ones not to pursue surrogate children is like asking water not to flow downhill. The desire is built into their cosmic structure, shapes their every interaction with reality, defines their relationship with beings like human. They cannot choose differently, any more than humans can choose not to be curious. Both species are trapped by their own nature, doomed to interact in ways that benefit neither. The alternative that haunts Rom's story most persistently is the possibility of shared cosmic awareness without loss of self. If humans could achieve cosmic perception while retaining human consciousness, if transformation didn't require vacancy, if enlightenment didn't demand self-erasure, then Rom's sacrifice would have led somewhere positive. She could have been the first of a new kind of being, cosmic yet human, transcendent yet personal, aware yet alive. But Bloodborne's universe doesn't support this possibility. Every example of humans achieving cosmic awareness shows the same pattern. The consciousness expands to cosmic scale, but loses the unified self in the process. You can become aware of everything, or remain aware of yourself, but you cannot do both simultaneously. The self is too small to contain cosmic consciousness, and cosmic consciousness is too vast to maintain unified selfhood. This limitation might be fundamental to how consciousness works, rather than specific to Bloodborne's universe. Maybe any consciousness that perceives beyond certain limits must fragment, must lose coherence, must sacrifice unity for scope. If true, then Rom's vacancy wasn't the cost of one particular transformation, but represents a universal truth about the relationship between awareness and identity. In this reading, Rom's tragedy becomes even more profound because it's utterly inevitable. There was never any possibility of achieving her goal, cosmic awareness, without paying her price, loss of self. The transformation was doomed from conception. She pursued an impossible goal and achieved it impossibly, succeeding only by ceasing to be the entity that wanted to succeed. All the alternatives, all the paths not taken, all the different choices that might have been made, none of them escape this fundamental trap. Humanity was doomed to pursue cosmic truth. Cosmic truth was guaranteed to destroy human consciousness, and someone like Rom was necessary to manage the transition, to slow the inevitable catastrophe, to to buy time for a species rushing toward its own destruction. Her transformation was the best terrible option available. Her death was the inevitable conclusion to her purpose. The alternatives that never were simply variations on the same tragic theme. Consciousness seeking to transcend itself, cosmic forces reshaping mortal minds, and the terrible cost of every interaction between beings operating on incompatible scales of existence. If there's tragedy in contemplating these alternatives, it lies not in what might have been, but in recognizing that nothing could have been significantly different. The fundamental structures were always in place. Human curiosity, cosmic yearning, the incompatibility between mortal and transcendent consciousness. Rom's story played out the only way it could, and every alternative we imagine inevitably leads back to the same conclusion. Someone must become vacuous to protect others from truths they cannot survive, and eventually even that protection must fail. Chapter 15. Legacy and Remembrance. Thank you for joining me on this deep exploration of Rom, the vacuous spider, and her tragic role as the barrier between worlds. If you've enjoyed this journey into Bloodborne's deepest mysteries, there's so much more lore to explore. Until next time, may your hunt be guided by mercy, and may you think twice before demanding truths that might cost more than you're prepared to pay. Fear the old blood, travelers, and remember, some barriers exist to protect us from ourselves.